Well, welcome back to another podcast from the Miles Driven. This time, Owen and I are going to be talking about every generation of Audi TT, which hopefully, Owen, will be a little bit less than the RS conversation.
We'll see how we get on.
That went on considerably longer than we thought. We're going to do a little bit of news first off. There isn't a lot. It's that time of year, midsummer. There isn't a ton of news. Simple as that. So Audi have announced that the Q8 will get a successor. It's confirmed to come by the year 2030. Probably will be the year 2030. And it's likely to get a V8, but it will also have, I guess it may have the diesel, depending on how well the Q7 diesel sells. But yeah, so it's likely to get a V8 along with a few other powertrains. The Vauxhall Corsa GSE is doing the media rounds and has had some really interesting tests. I think the thing that stands out about it, I'll give you a couple of the stats on it. So it's a 54 kilowatt hour battery, 232 miles of range quoted. So realistically, probably more like 210,
yeah, about that.
200.
So it's not a heat pump or not. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, I have to find out actually. 1,550 kilos. So not too bad on weight, actually, considering it's an EV and considering actually, as we had in our discussion of Audis last week, 1,600 kilos is, it's a bit standard now for sort of hot stuff. Interestingly, 34,495 pricing, but it will get the UK. So if you're in the UK, it will get the UK EV grant. So it's 32,995 with the grant.
Yeah,
that's before Vauxhall do any special deals if you finance it or whatever else. I think 276 horsepower was a bit I missed there. The thing that stood out for me was actually that number for a Corsa.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the previous generations of VXR in the Vauxhall or Opel range, or Holden if you're in Australia.
Holden Barina.
Yes. So
yeah.
Then VXR had 265, 280, so 240, then 265, I think 280 is where it finished up. So, and that's in the Astra, not in the Corsa. So it sort of moved up its bracket of the power it's going to give. Yes, it's an EV. Some people won't like that. Some people will like that. Looks really funky. I think the only thing that the interesting thing underneath it, very similar to the Alpine, sorry.
A290.
A290, yeah.
It's its direct rival.
Yeah.
But will also be platform share with the upcoming 208 GTI as well.
Yeah, okay. So there's going to be a lot of similarities going on. It'll be interesting to see how the brands deal with having probably a very similar platform and tech.
Yeah.
And what they will do with it differently.
It's really interesting how they've executed it. We actually mentioned it previously in another one when we first unveiled it. The detailing on it's really nice. They've got some real like 3-spoke style wheels to hark back to the original GTE Nova.
Yeah.
And key to this car also is similar to the new ID Polo GTIs. It's going to have an LSD as well.
Yeah.
Which in a front wheel drive BEV torque means that you can actually use a lot of that power. It's much more powerful than the A290, more powerful than the Mini Cooper. E-Coupe, and it's less expensive than both. Do you think actually it's quite a good value proposition?
Do you think it will be? I think it'll do okay in the UK. I use the word okay only because the hot versions of anything that isn't sort of the mid-size hatchback and got a GTI badge or something is never going to be a big seller.
No,
but I think it will do pretty well for UK. What do you think it will be like Europe?
Well, UK is, as you say, a very strong hot hatchback market. You love a hot hatch in the UK. If you align it to the BEV mix in terms of electric vehicles, about 1 in 3 cars sold in the UK is now electric. In many markets in the rest of Europe, it's more like 1 in 10. Depends. So actually, it's the BEV uptake is very strong in the UK actually.
Yeah.
So that
should help it really.
Yeah, and I think it'll do all right. To be honest, I think I'm looking at the spec, and I know it's hampered by that badge relative to something like Alpine and probably Mini, but actually the spec looks quite interesting, and it will be because it's also underpinning the Peugeot E208 GTI will come later. That means both those brands have been pooling resource to actually spend probably quite a bit to get it right.
Yep.
So the R&D profile looks good, and I'm quite liking how they've gone a bit retro with the detailing on the
car.
So I'm feeling pretty good about that actually. So I'm looking forward to driving on.
And a final note on it, I think we should always mention that it's a plus when manufacturers work together. A lot of the time it gets criticised. Like, oh, it's just the same thing. Look, ultimately, if two companies together put in more money than they would have done as a single company, you're going to likely get more R&D, better end product,
Yeah.
and then they'll take
Quality,
it.
durability, and the powertrain. They'll do their own calibration. That's where value lies.
There will be a fork in the road, so they'll come to a certain point, and then they'll go.
The way the power's delivered, and I agree with you. It's a good opportunity to make it work.
Mazda 6 is getting an E version, so electric version. I know it's a little bit heavy on electric news. We did say that it's just this time of year. It's not loads of news, but I did want to mention that the reason I mentioned it for Mazda is because they had the MX-30. It's not been a great seller. It's very low range. It's really not
124 miles, one of those.
Yeah, I think it's not a car really specifically for the UK. I think they offered it here for a variety of reasons, mainly led off the idea they had to get emissions targets and stuff. But it makes more sense if you live in, a city. Maybe London, it probably could make sense. But I think they were thinking of sort of areas of the world where people are only going to use it as a city car, never anything else. And that's why they ended up with that car.
They did range extended, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, but very small volume.
Again, yeah, it's
not great range.
And price went up, and it moved it into a bracket of then people are just not picking it versus it. Whereas this will be, it's going to be, what's the range? 300, I did write it down, 348 miles of range. So, it's sort of in there with
model Tesla 3 range.
That's it. Yeah. So the 6 sort of that size as well. It's going to be just over 2 tons, 2015 kilos. So
is it bad? Right.
It's in with its mark. I think for you and I, we would compare it against cars of old and be like, oh, it's heavy, but you have to always recalibrate your head
in the context.
Yeah, absolutely. Recalibrate your head.
That is good
For EV. That's
like a Mazda. They're nicely designed. Drive nicely.
The curious thing I found about it, so 255 horsepower, it's got the range like you'd expect it to compete on. It's going to have an LFP battery, which I really like, because they should be pretty robust. It's going to be £40,000. So some people will be unhappy about that, but I think all the people will be looking at that as a company purchase.
Yeah.
That's right in there with the mix of other cars.
Tesla.
And I think it'd be interesting because I think the government grant in the UK, I think it's a 40 cutoff.
It is a 40.
So that might be a 39.95. And if it is, then it's more like 37. So then it all counts. The only thing, I know it probably shouldn't matter, but 7.3 second 0 to 62. The only reason I bring that up, I'm not going to say it's a problem because this isn't a car built for speed.
Sure.
But against the competition it's going, a lot of sort of move towards that sort of 6 something second for this saloon EV. If it was a SUV, I think then it can move up into the 7s and no one really minds. But for this size, a lot of its direct competitors, family cars, people don't want to go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. The kids are going to throw up in the back. But 6.5, something like that would be more.
That's where Model 3 entry comes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the CLA 250, which is where we're going to be comparing against exhaust, is also in that, is in the 6s too. So,
and the CLA obviously moves all the way up because it has the AMG version now, and that goes crazy. So
and the standard range on it's epic as well.
Right.
I mean, it's 460 odd miles.
I think you've got to look. A lot of people who listen to this, who've listened to me for a long time, they know I used to work for Mazda, so I have a bit of a soft spot for them. I think for this car, you've got to like Mazda.
I agree.
You ought to be picking it over some competition that is either just as good or possibly what people like versus what is the best choice is as car enthusiasts never a discussion. And I think you ought to be that.
And range is still a thing in the UK. People still have range anxiety and they have charging anxiety, even when they move into the BEV space. That's been proven. So it's not like when you get your first electric car, you're over it. You're not. Right. So actually, that extra range provided by the competition is going to be really needed. And even the lowest cost Tesla, which is Model 3, which is definitely sub 40, has a really good charging structure and also has a higher standard range in there.
And BMW i3, when that comes out, is it will be a bit more money, but I don't know that it's going to be a lot more money in its entry.
When it first comes out, it's going to be punchy ones, but the low, that will come out later. So you're right. I'm going to watch that car with some interest, how it's received.
Yeah. And the last bit of news, probably actually the most interesting of the, the course is quite interesting, but those of you who are big Audi fans, like Owen, will remember the Audi A2. It's been dead for
2005. It stopped.
Really? So 21
years.
So 21 years, okay. So people who were born when this car ended are now legal to drink in the US. So that's how long it's been. People who are now grown adults, have no idea this car existed. So the A2 is coming back. It's going to be an EV. Okay. So I I thought, when I first heard about it coming back, I thought they would go for some really intelligent hybrid system. I thought they would go, well, because what was the A2? Was it a 1.4 diesel?
There were two diesels, that a 1.4 three-cylinder diesel and a 1.2 three-cylinder diesel.
That was back in the day.
Markets.
And those were the ones that were ultra frugal.
That was the 1.2 TDI called the 3L. Okay. And did 100 miles to the gallon.
Right.
And it's amazing.
So in my head, what I thought is Audi would use this as the engineering expertise car to say, we can pair up, like a 1 litre engine with a moderate battery, say 20 kilowatt hours, maybe a bit more. And we can do 200 miles per gallon. So something that harked back to that previous car.
You nailed it in terms of why the A2 didn't really take off, because the R&D spend was epic. So therefore, and the cost of building was epic.
Yeah.
And the investment was amazing. I love that car.
Yeah.
It's an incredible thing. And every true car enthusiast, I believe, also does love that car. But the price that's charged for it was quite high because of all that tech, and therefore they didn't sell too much volume. So this car has now been engineered, the new one, to be on an existing Volkswagen Group platform.
It's going to be on the MEB Plus platform.
The same platform as ID Polo. It makes complete sense to me, but I think you had some interesting stuff about the efficiency of that.
Yeah, so it's going to, when it comes out, it's going to have 187 horsepower. That's what they're claiming. It's good. But the interesting point is a 61 kilowatt hour battery. You can do the maths. I will tell you the number. 61 kilowatt hour battery. They claim 390 miles of range. And when you do the maths on that, you'll see that A2 is going to live on from its old ethos, because that will make it, and this is what they're claiming, the highest efficiency of mile per kilowatt hour on the market. So it will go to 4.85 miles per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Current record holder is 4.76. I think it was. I read 4.76 is the Tesla Model 3, the most efficient one they do.
Long range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going punchy to sort of try and take a title away from.
That's perfect.
Well,
isn't that paying due respect to the legacy of
right.
the A2?
So when I started this, I said, I'm surprised they didn't go hybrid and do something clever.
Yeah.
Well, they are doing something clever.
Yeah,
so this, like you mentioned, the chassis will, the platform will be ID Polo.
Yeah.
It's also going to be the ID3 Neo. So ID3 is being heavily refreshed. So it's already had a facelift along with the Cupra Born and a lot of other cars that are on the MEB platform. And Volkswagen is saying this is the MEB Plus platform. So there is actual platform changes that we're doing. That's going to, so we'll see the, I don't know actually if we'll see the ID3 Neo or the Polo first. I think ID3 Neo.
Yes, it's because they're starting production imminently now. The ID Polos take a bit longer. Also the Skoda Epic as well, and the Cupra Raval as well. So,
Cupra Raval, yeah, they're interesting car.
They've got a really long range one, haven't they? They've got ones that already do 380 odd miles.
They have 2 batteries that go on this platform.
Yeah.
But they're saying that the A2 currently, they're only making the claim for the 61.
So they're gonna bring the bigger battery out and go way beyond 400 miles.
Yeah, oh yeah,
complete USP in that segment.
I think the other battery is 83 kilowatt hours.
It's gonna be epic.
So you can kind of see where this is going.
Yeah.
We will hold our breath.
Me walking to an Audi dealer and getting in the queue to buy one. That sounds amazing.
So we'll hold our breath on. I'll be really interested to see, because that's a strong claim, and it means it's got to do it. When it gets that first group test. When it gets in the hands of the press for the first time, I'm sure Audi will make sure it's released, in spring or autumn, or the time that, you want to release it in January in the depth of winter.
Yeah.
They'll do it right. If it actually does it, it grabs its headline.
Volkswagen are pretty good at that.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
They try not to promise under deliver, so I have confidence in that. But I didn't realize the battery range was based on that, so that's actually going to be really interesting. Bigger battery back.
And as I say, well, that's all the numbers from the 61. So there's winning for them.
Price keen as well. I've seen the vision on pricing is it's going to start below 30k.
Yeah, because I suppose you've got A3 ahead of it. I know that's combustion, but that's 34 grand for quite a nice spec one. So you need to, I'd say Cupra Raval is going to be a 30k car.
Yeah.
Born, there were previously heavy discounts because they were doing a facelift. When the facelift has then come out, they're then facelifting it again for the updated car. So there's been some heavy discounts. With all those cars around, you have to be quite keen price. But anyway, I said we wouldn't spend too much time on the news.
What a cool look! I mean, they haven't unveiled the design of it yet. They've
shown some camo.
They've done some camo cars and some early media drives in terms of just broader driving impressions. But I'm really looking forward to them taking the covers off. It's going to be really, really good.
So if you listen to the miles driven, podcast, but you don't watch the miles driven, then you should watch the miles driven, because we've literally just, I think, an hour ago, we got out the car, done a review of the Mark III generation Audi TT. And so this podcast is going to be dedicated to the Audi TT.
What a car.
So with this, let's just do a couple of headline things, and then we'll dive into it a bit. So there's 3 generations. There currently is no TT on the market.
Yep.
From what we understand, the next TT will be an EV. However, we should put a little asterisk that we know it's a shared platform with the future. Well, we know that Porsche and Audi are doing something here. I don't want to say it's the same car underneath, because there could be some things we don't know going on, especially because Porsche have talked about possible hybrids and stuff like that. As far as we understand, there will be no hybrid TT, which means the last combustion TT really has come and gone. Maybe Audi are changing their mind as we speak, but that's what we know. So there is a journey that we're going to go on here, which is to an actual end, because whatever the TT has been, I'm sure Audi will say there's a lineage that they're going to pick up, and I understand that completely, and that will become through style, and it will become through, but the lineage of at least the combustion era, as far as we know, has ended. And so we're going to have a story.
We'll
pick that up at the end.
Okay, we'll pick it up at the end. All right.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So where do you want to start?
Oh, from the beginning. So,
But where? Because there's sort of like, there's the concept point.
1995.
We're going to go all the way to
All right. Okay.
But well, roll us in then. Roll us in at 95.
So, 1995, Audi unveiled the original TT Coupe concept car.
Do you know where?
Does it show? I don't know.
Let me see if I can find out.
Well, I'm guessing it's Frankfurt, but I might be wrong. It might Frankfurt or Geneva. But they showed a concept car and to try and inject a bit of passion into Audi. It was the year after they'd rolled out the A4 to massive critical acclaim, and it just around the same time they're launching the A3. Audi were really on a brand growth mission, and they showed this exciting sports car. They didn't give any technical details at the time. They just showed the car. They then brought the Roadster out, I think about a year later, as a concept. And then actually the production car first went into production in 1998.
Frankfurt Motor Show, 1995.
Yeah, well, so Frankfurt, so the German show. It's a big flag-waving show for the German brands. So yeah, and then the production car arrived in 1998. They hadn't really talked about platforms. They hadn't talked about powertrains particularly. They were just the kind of the shock and awe factor. Highlight for me, pre-series, was the Roadster actually showed this special kind of leather interior with basketball stitching on it.
Yes.
Amazing. So properly, it wasn't just about the design, that shock and awe of the car. It was about the colour and trim proposition that Audi could do as well. So some amazing colours, amazing trims. So yeah, that's where the Mark 1 TT started. And they did it as a test to see would there be a market demand for this car. And the market emphatically said yes.
So it then spends, so 95 it first gets shown. I think they do a revision of the concept for around 97, which is basically bringing it closer to what it will be, the finalised car. And then, are we saying 98?
Yeah, I think late 98 production.
I was going to say, because I have seen them, I think, on an S plate.
Yeah,
but they would have been like
more like 99, isn't it?
Oh, it really, I mean, 99 is a definite.
Yeah.
But I'm tempted to say, I will double check it just so we're correct, but I'm tempted to say that 98 there was a launch, and it won't be for the US and places like that.
Yes.
And outside of Europe, it's likely to have been. I think the UK was identified early on as a critical market, obviously Germany, and possibly maybe Austria and places like that. I can't think of where would have been uber critical for them, but the UK and Germany I think would have got it very, very early on. So February 1998 is production beginning. Okay, the model years are 99.
The UK had to wait a bit longer.
Yeah, I was going to say, I will just try and see if I can get any confirmation on when the UK first got them. But so they started building them.
The first ones I saw were like the V plate, I think, but maybe no.
Oh, V, yeah,
maybe. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, as I said, the Roadster follows it. So yes, 98 is officially a coupe. First builds. 99, so August 99 is the first builds. But again, if you're listening to this, add a year on.
Yeah.
So 2000 realistically for a coupe, for a convertible, and a coupe 99, because they'll be out there. But by now, have they been crashed? Is someone keeping one somewhere? There was probably very, very few to begin with. And as well, we can talk about the recall. The early on recall that happens with the TT. So this is all about... actually, do you know why Audi of all companies would have missed this in the first place? Because all Audis, all German cars, have got to have some guy or woman who bravely says, I'll take it on the Autobahn at 5 a.m. on so-and-so morning, and just check it can do a high-speed run.
I mean, the high-speed testing, typically speaking, the Volkswagen Group was done at Aurelesi, which is where I do the VMAX testing. And that's a very specific controlled environment. With the issues I think you alluded to about the aerodynamic issues, which cause the car to lift at very high speed on autobahns, causing the issues.
So some fatalities were reported from that.
Really unfortunate, and it caused a big uproar at the time. And it was not a nice way to launch the car because the swooping aero design meant that the air, it basically causing the car to lift. So the remedy for that was the ductile rear spoiler, the standardization of ESP, electric stability program, and also revisions to the suspension and a couple of other bits as well, which really did fix the problem. But it was a tough birth for the TT with that issue. But in answer to your question, I don't know about Autobahn testing. My understanding is there was a level of risk involved in that to the members of the public and Volkswagen Group quite risk averse. They might not have actually done high-speed testing on public roads.
Because the specific problem wasn't necessarily, if you were arrow straight going down the middle lane of a motorway at 100 and whatever mile an hour on the Autobahn,
150.
That wasn't what upset it. It was the lane changing. And you would lose, or cornering.
And then you got a certain crosswind. There could be a number of different things happening. There's change in road surface. Yeah. Someone had to make it a correction at high speed because the lane changed, and that's what caused potentially some instability.
And when you think of where their test track is, so you've got a forest on one side and then sort of the internals of the track on the other.
Yeah.
You've got a mile-long straight where I don't imagine they would bother they wouldn't bother to change lane, but why would they think to if they're just doing a high-speed run? So it wouldn't necessarily replicate this exact problem, and I suppose that's possibly what caught them out. I'm just surprised, speak to the German coppers and say, listen, we're Audi and we just need to shut a road for a couple of hours for us at 4 a.m.
But it's interesting because it's an interesting slip, but it's also interesting to say it will virtually exactly the same time happen to another German manufacturer with a different car. So we had the Mercedes A-Class ELP test issue, which happened in the same year. So actually, it wasn't an isolated case.
That's even more shocking to me because the ELP test is not a trivial thing.
No.
Do you know what I mean? That's something that manufacturers go for winter testing. Doesn't matter if you're a Korean, Japanese manufacturer, German manufacturer, American manufacturer. This is like cold weather. Okay, the Americans probably go to Canada and do it, but people go to Sweden, Finland. I don't know that they go to Norway, but Sweden and Finland is up in the Arctic Circle. So I know it's not a Mercedes podcast, but just it's really interesting that you point out.
Two brands have it at the same time.
Yeah.
Within months of each other.
So anyway, so that's an early issue, and you do see people modify them today to actually remove the spoiler again.
It was a retrograde step at the time. I mean, we're used to seeing TTs with spoilers. When the spoiler got put on, people were kind of horrified. But Audi responded super quickly to that. That, my goodness, that was impressive. As soon as there was a issue identified, they had a fix very, very quickly organised. So difficult birth in that respect, which is a shame because it cast a little bit of a shadow over the car. But I think because they responded so well and so quickly to it, actually, that's broadly been forgotten. In terms of that being an issue, to be honest, unless you're a real kind of car nerd like us.
I was going to say, I think you've got to be
I don't think it's stuck too much. I think they've kind of been forgiven by that as a kind of one-off situation, similar to Mercedes with the ELP test. So.
I'm just looking at a picture of one, and if you're listening to this, then you can grab one up on your phone. But the original design without the spoiler, so you know what it looks like. I mean, I don't need to. My view is that it looks better with the spoiler.
I'm actually with you. It works quite well. It was quite well balanced. But if you do find one for sale without the spoiler, that is an exceptionally rare car. There's a night how the rave. I hear that Audi UK are actually looking for one. So there's one to put on their historic press fleet. But it's the vast majority. It was a free upgrade. People could take the car to the dealership and get it all sorted. So again, Audi responded super well to that situation. But if you do see one for sale without a rear spoiler, it's an indication it's a very, very early car because all the spoilers went on within 6 months of production.
Make sure someone just hasn't removed it.
Yes, absolutely.
It's got to be a particular, and we're talking about a 98 built car, a very early 99 built car.
Yes, exactly.
We registered 99, but it'll be built at that period. it won't be a 2000 car.
No, exactly. By the time you got to W plate, it was all sorted and done. So, and the customer's got an upgrade. You got your stability controls down.
Yeah, and I'm just reading that they did make some minor adjustments to the actual suspension.
They did. Well, yeah, they toned it down.
There was some,
and actually, for Mercedes, the A-Class wasn't dissimilar changes other than spoiler. So it made that car very stiffly.
See, this is why you listen to the miles driven everyone, because you get little nuggets in like that with it,
But no, again, it's a shame to dwell on it because it was a difficult birth. But I think it's because they dealt with it so well, it's broadly been forgotten. And the Mark 1 TT, it didn't stop it being a huge success, and it did have some challenges. So Audi wanted to keep a keen price point for the car, because it was going to be a kind of car for the people, so it's to be a sports car for the people. The thing that really stood out to me about that car when it was unveiled was the design was so, I mean, it's the thing to say, but the design was so impactful, but it was actually the interior that really landed it for me, because it's very much a Bauhaus kind of German design language inside and outside of the car. And no one was ready for it, and no one had really seen anything like that before when the concept came out. They were blown away by it. It hadn't really given too much technical detail, but actually the platform was Mark IV Golf, which is one of the most auspicious of performance car platforms.
Yeah.
And
can you name the cars that shared a platform with it?
Seat Leon.
Yep.
Skoda Octavia.
Yes.
Although albeit with a longer wheelbase.
Yep.
Obviously the Mark IV Golf.
Yeah.
Audi A3.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Go on, fill me in.
Beetle.
Beetle.
I
Yes.
thought you might get Beetle. Bora and Jetta.
Bora, yes, of course. Yeah.
And then you already said Seat Leon, so Seat Toledo.
Yes. Okay. There we go.
So that's, by the way, I just opened Wikipedia for that. So I just saw it related, and I thought, I wonder if you can mention.
I've got all the way there. So
but that does show the breadth.
They had longer wheelbase, those cars, in fairness to that kind of thing. But yeah, so the platform can support performance cars, but actually, if you think of all the cars you just mentioned, the one you'd expect the most driver engagement from would be the TT.
Yes.
The platform can only do so much, but actually, the car did really well. I've driven a lot of TTs, and the car was actually much greater than the sum of its parts to drive, which I was surprised by when I first drove them. Okay. But the design was just incredible, and the quality, amazing. I mean, sorry, I'm gushing about it, but I just the TT was such a really nicely executed as a car, the Mark 1.
Only 2 engines. So let's just start off with, there's a lot of variations to the 1.8 turbo.
Yeah,
we're going to cover that second. We're doing it backwards. Okay, so if you're listening to this, you don't know too much about TTs. We're going to just do this backwards, because the second engine, which is the 3.2 VR6 engine, that's actually just a simpler conversation for us to have. It's only in for a couple of years, so let's do that first.
Okay.
Because the 1.8 turbo, the 1.8 turbo takes us all the way to the very tippy end of production. So I think we should save that one. Let's just do the 3.2 first, then we'll do 1.8 turbo. So
yeah.
Do you know what year? I think 2003, but I'm happy to be wrong.
Very late came out. Yeah, so first press cars were 03, 2003. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because this is the conversation, wasn't it? Who got the? And we've actually had this conversation completely off camera. Just I think we were at a car show or something together, and I said to you, "Who got the 3.2 VR6 engine first? Did Volkswagen get it in the R32, or I know the engine has a longer lineage than that, but for this generation of it, is it the R32? Is it the TT? And both?
Or was it the Touareg?
Yeah, and you can imagine there would have been a bit of an internal fight of, well, we're doing the R32 and this is our first ever, so we should get it.
Yeah.
And then there would have been the conversation from Audi of, but this is the TT. We need it to, and then it was the argument of who got DSG first, because it was offered on the TT and on so there is this little bit of sitting around in the background.
So what market got the 3.2 TT first globally?
Ooh. See, my default answer in my head would think the UK or Germany, but oh, was it? No, okay. I'm gonna guess a bit of an out there one. Australia.
It wasn't. It was actually, you were right. The first one he said was the UK, which
it was the UK.
We got it first time because the TT went into Europe first, because the UK by that point had proven itself to be such a strong market for the TT.
Okay.
They tore up for right-hand drive first. So actually, the TT V6 DSG went to the UK first. There's a little fact. The UK was, because it's such a big market and so successful. Audi UK were rewarded with the ability to be able to launch that car first.
That's cool. I like that. 3.2 lives until the end of production.
Yeah.
It's a 24-valve engine. It's actually, if you're a big car enthusiast, there's a lot to be said about this engine, but I think just for time, I want to say a lot of it is beyond the scope of this particular podcast, because if we go off into but from the TT's point of view, essentially it ups power.
Yeah.
So we've got to talk about this when we talk about the 1.8 in a minute. But in 2003, this is the most powerful TT that you can buy.
Yeah.
250.
Yeah. 250. Yeah.
It is then offered with DSG, which does
Same time. DSG came first. Manual came later.
It gave a sort of halo presence to the TT because there is no TTS or RS in this generation.
Sure, yeah.
So I think this is the moment where Audi realised we do have a customer base who are possibly not buying for style, and not to say it's an unstylish, but you know, the customers that are possibly looking for just stuff that looks good. That's not actually our only market. We've got people that are really interested in driving. So let's offer them something that can, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. So it was, the TTV6 was a really interesting car actually. So they launched it with we actually had some exterior changes. It had a new wheel design, which is unique to that car. It also had a bigger rear spoiler.
Yes.
And front extension, and front and rear diffusers as well. It's interesting to say for the driver because the engine was quite a big 3.2 V6. Didn't have the throttle response thing like the 1.8T.
Yeah,
it was a big heavy engine of the front wheels. Yeah. So to be honest, drivability on a V6, it's not what a TT 1.8T was.
So I think it's that era of this is still the days. Today we live in a not necessarily turn up the boost, but you know, you fit a larger turbo, you improve the cooling, you work mapping of engines. This was the back end of the 90s and the 80s where there had been some tuning going on because turbocharging had been around, but the answer has generally been
more capacity.
Yes. Bigger engine, more cylinders. That is has been the answer all this time. And you kind of see the TT is like the top of that wave, you know, as the wave is going to come down and we're going to move into the next era in sort of 2007, 8, when we're going to be moving more towards smaller capacity, but turbocharging and lots of stuff.
Yeah.
The Mark 1 TT really shows where it was in time because it gets on the top of that wave to say, we're going to offer more power through more capacity. And that's why I think that would have pulled in those enthusiasts. But like you say,
it wasn't the sweet spot.
It wasn't going to deliver what possibly those enthusiasts had turned up. Whether you would notice it, it'd be interesting, and we'll probably have to get one on the channel at some point, because I think it would be interesting to find out at what point, is it 6/10, is it 7/10, is it 8/10, is it 9/10, is it 10/10 on the road, that you really start to feel this, I would be better off in a higher power, in the 225 1.8 turbo. You know,
it was on the road. It was very much GT car rather than performance focus car, and on the track it was not good. That's the personal experience, to be honest.
Well, you were at Audi at the time.
It was for me the TTV6 on paper looks great, but actually the manifestation of the drive was not really there. So it made a nice noise. But I just say that because there seems to be the prices creeping up of V6 TTs at the moment, especially manual ones. And I'm struggling to figure out.
I think there's a combination of you can't do it anymore. Noise. The engine makes a very
fabulous.
Yeah, it's something you know. Yeah, people go out and buy a stereo because that stereo is better than a different stereo, and they can hear the difference. This is I think 50% of the purchase is off the back of I can't make that noise. I can buy R32s, Mark 4, Mark 5.
Yeah.
You can buy, funny enough, this engine did actually go into quite a few cars. It went into the Cayenne.
Right.
It went into quite a few Chinese cars that have only stopped production in the last few years.
Exactly.
You know,
the Passat, you know,
it went into
ton,
and you know, its 3.6 version went into the Passat R36. So it is around, but the one that I think will jump to people's mind is TT R32. Yeah, those are that's where it's
the early adopters of those engines. I just feel like the drive. I don't want people's expectations to be dashed by listening to podcasts and then go to drive and thinking this is not much cop. Right. If you drive the TTV6 and are underwhelmed by the drive, go on to the car we're going to talk about next, which is one of the 1.8Ts. That's the best advice.
So we're going to talk about that one last. We're going to go back to the 1.8 turbo.
Okay.
So we've covered off the 3.2. So like you said, you could have it manual, could have it DSG, but it's DSG first, then manual.
It was. Yeah.
I wonder, it'd be really interesting to know what the sales mix was. My guess would be pretty split
Well, the DSG sold longer, and it was actually called DSG. Audi later went to S-tronic for the naming of that gearbox. It was launched as DSG. It went on for longer.
That's a really good point. I have not thought of that before. That is actually a Audi using the term DSG, and they don't.
Group, and they branded it differently later. I think the mix would have been higher because it was also the shock and awe factor. When that car launched, the message of the TT V6 wasn't the V6; it was the gearbox. Yes. When they drove the car, and all the media were really psyched about dual clutch transmissions. It was the world's first dual clutch transmission, and that Volkswagen Group got there first. So that was really dominated, which I think probably made the media didn't go too hard on the dynamics of that car because they were more like testing the gearbox rather than testing the overall TT V6. So that's why I feel now I need to reassert that point that the drivability is best served elsewhere on Mark 1 TT.
If you find Owen goes and buys one of these, he's just trying to depress the prices. Yeah,
there you go.
Okay, so let's take a step back. Well, definitely the majority of these cars are sold with 1.8 turbo.
Absolutely.
But I was about to say the majority are sold with the entry point, but I don't know if that's correct, so I'm not going to declare it.
Okay.
But what we do know is there are 4. You can 5.
Yes.
But 5th is a special one we're going to talk about later. There's 4 versions of the 1.8 turbo. So there's a 150, which is the entry. And the easy way to tell that is single exit exhaust. Okay. There is a 180, which is 30 horsepower more, still single exit exhaust, but an extra gear.
Later,
210, okay, which is the early higher power ones, twin exhaust.
Okay.
And then facelift, that becomes the 225, so 2001, 2002.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll go with I think the 210 is, I think, for some markets in the UK I don't think we offered it.
So interesting.
They did do that. So
let me check that.
Well, yeah, cool. I'll go through that. So yeah, you're right. So the in terms of what you said about the volume, the biggest selling one, the 1.8 T was sold end to end, but the lower powered 150 horsepower one was only sold from 2003 onwards, and that was front wheel drive only and only sold in the Roadster.
Oh, so at entry it wasn't a 150.
No, it wasn't.
I should say, because I've sold these, I never used, but I probably did only sell the later ones. I wasn't.
Yeah, there was the car launched in 1999 with the 2 engines, the 180 horsepower 1.8 T and a 225 one in the UK, and a 225 one. And the way to distinguish those was the single exhaust on the 180, and the 225 had twin exhaust, and the 225 also had xenon headlights. But basically everything else was very, very similar on the 2 cars. They ran side by side, and actually always did run side by side. The 180 was a 5-speed, later switched to a 6-speed, and they were initially all quattro. Later on in the life cycle, they brought out the 150 as a roadster. They brought out the 180 as a front-wheel drive coupe. And also the 180 got the option for the first time on a TT of an all-proper automatic gearbox /matic, but they sold very few of those in the UK, and it was a very short period of time they sold that car for. And then the run-out version, they obviously had the very, very special one that we'll talk about in a bit. But the 225 and the 180 were the ones that were the most volume sellers because they were around for the longest. They enter into the life cycle. The 225 had quite a different, well, they all had 1.8 T engines, but it had a different turbo setup and different intake setup, all those kind of aspects. So the 225 was a real step up for 1.8 hesitantly.
So did they, I think they both do have the same gearbox, but is that correct?
I think the 180 I think initially had the 5-speeder, but then it went 6-speed later, I believe. But they could have gone because they didn't really have facelifts on the TT. They had model year programs. So, for example, the 225 switched to further differentiation to the 180. They switched to like metal effect headlight inners and those kind of things.
Oh, sorry,
9 wheels.
Did we mention that it's quattro?
What's that? 1.8?
Yeah. Sorry, the 180.
Yeah, 180 quattro.
You mentioned. Sorry, I missed that when I said. I just wanted to double check because I was.
Yeah, no, they were both.
Sorry,
both launcher quattros. When those the two models that carried on throughout. Audi added more and more engine derivatives to get more keener price points because they did a lot of customer checking. From the early doors in Germany, they did have more engines. Audi UK specifically held it to the more kind of premium expensive ones because they frankly could. Because they were sold out of TT for ages. Why bother selling cheap ones? We were selling higher mileage as higher margin versions. there was a big point for me, a big point in early 2003, and they switched to the beautiful 9-arm 18-inch wheels as standard.
So yeah, it
was the 180 horsepower and 225s. They looked stunning, and they were the same wheels as fitted to the RS4, the B5 as well. And the reason they did that is because the other cars were coming in with smaller wheels, with the smaller engines, so they needed to provide that walk up. So yeah, for me, a car I really enjoyed driving while I was there was the 1.8T Roadster. And that had 150 horsepower, 5-speed gearbox, fabric seats, tiny little 16-inch wheels, and it was hilarious. It was really, really nice. It was a happy little car. But the real driver's car for me was that 225. And it had, in Volkswagen Group circles, what they know as the BAM engine.
Yes, I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
Very familiar with BAM engine, yeah, and fantastic powertrain. And when I talked about the V6 powertrain earlier, the 1.8T had really good low-down torque. So, and it had a Haldex four-wheel drive system. So what it would do at low speed and second gear in a roundabout, you could give it the boot, a load of torque would get thrown into the rear because of all the boost and the torque.
Yeah.
And it would fire itself out around it. So actually TTs were quite fun to drive, just in a different way. And if you got the right engine and got the right combination, it was pretty special.
You're right. There's no 210. This is a year thing. So 2001 is when I think I was thinking of, so I had an S3 of this era, and that they did have 210, 225.
I think it did in other markets.
And in Cupra, so we didn't get it. They did have a 190.
They did later on.
So that was the sort of 180, which was 190. And front wheel drive, sorry, so it doesn't. So there are more versions, but there's a 150. For simplicity, there's a 150, there's a 180. 180 does, I don't know if it's the UK, but I'm seeing here, it can be Quattro or not Quattro. So I don't know if that's
only later. The non-Quattro came later.
Okay. And then we moved to 190 for non-Quattro.
Right.
Then 225 comes in. So 225, there's a couple of things. Today, I think that's easily the most desirable. Yeah. Does have a known gearbox issue. I suffered it on a Leon Cupra. We've talked about the pain. There's an episode of Wheeler Dealers where they actually buy a TT and
fix it 50p.
Yes, because it's essentially the fork within it snaps in the gearbox. So if you can work on it yourself and you know what you're doing, it's not catastrophic. Otherwise, I can tell you personal experience, it's quite a pain. Yeah, because someone, you've got to pay a gearbox specialist to even though the sort of problem is known, no average mechanic will open up a gearbox to have a look, because if they open it up and it's not that, they're just like, well,
out of the way it's done.
So they just send it to a gearbox specialist, and most of the time they want to do at least some milder reconditioning of the gearbox because they don't know what damage you've done. So there is a gearbox thing, but it's not the end of the world. If it happens, it's unfortunate. It's not every single one, but it's worth knowing. Very, very easy to tune.
Yes.
They take to it very easily.
Legendary engine.
You can push. So the S3 I had was pushed to, when I had it, I said 300, but realistically 285, 290. At that point, you start to be at the limits of the turbo. So the separation which you see on turbos, KO3 turbo, KO3S turbo, KO4 turbo. So if you're looking at the 225, KO4 turbo. The S is on the 180, and then regular one.
Mechanical differentiation, not just a remap.
Yeah, and that's interesting for me because I don't know that. I suppose today they would still do that.
I think they'd probably avoid it, wouldn't they? Because the amortization cost. This is what we get from the turbos. They had the single turbo, and they map around it probably.
Do you think today you could probably design a turbo from the offset that could have sort of two variations rather than so basically? I'm not saying, this is going to go way too technical for most people, but just like, I don't know, design a turbo, the whole housing, and then have the impeller at a slightly different angle, and it works in both ways, but with low power.
Or you do, or even easier, make it a variable geometry turbocharger and just manage the boost yourself. So, absolutely.
But I suppose then you're opening up.
Turbo tech's moved on massively since TZ first came out. It's amazing.
But from that point of view, if you're looking at buying one, you've got to be aware someone may have remapped it, so check that out. Gearbox could be an issue. If you're unlucky, I don't really know if there's any way to stop it happening.
It's not even mileage dependent. It just happens, isn't it? But as an owner of a Mark 1 2T 225 BAM, I bought one during COVID. Did you? Yeah, I did. Yeah. I went to go and see it, and I bought one with super low mileage, but it had been battered. It was like curb wheels and everything.
Sort of was going to be the next thing I was going to talk about was conditions of these, but carry on with this because I think it's so bloody bad.
But I could tell the mileage was genuine at 50,000 miles from new, and because the interior was just the seats, it was the bright yellow leather. It looked incredible, so I was like, I'm buying this car. And but it needed a lot of cosmetic work. But when it was done, it was beautiful.
So I think the reason for this is the whole the way you sit in the car. It's being bought by people who knew, not to be critical of anyone, but generally, if you're the type of person hunting around for sports cars, you've spent a bit of time in your life trying to make yourself a better driver in all scenarios because you're trying to buy faster and faster things. The TT inside it, I remember when I was selling cars, the great story that I sold one, but the condition of it, the condition of sale was that it had to be ready to go the next day, which was not a problem for us where I worked. We had a huge area for preparing cars, about 15 mechanics. It was a Saturday afternoon, half the team were in, not a problem. The slight issue was it was in Cardiff. So the car I'd driven her in, she really liked it, but it was, she wanted a car that was blue and we only had red, and she was like, I am not buying a red car. And if you ever have to sell cars in your life or you ever do it as a job, colour is probably, I would say, one of the biggest hurdles to get over. Because if people will not be seen in a yellow car, you're not going to sell them a yellow car.
Absolutely.
Simple as that. And yeah, so I think we only had red or something like that. And she was like, I will not have a red car. That was just her thing. I think she had this sort of deep belief of them all fading and you couldn't change her mind. We had a blue one and it was, sort of 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. She's like, well, it'd have to be by midday tomorrow. There's no way you can organise a driver on a weekend to get a car for that morning, or at least not that we had available to us. So I had two options as a salesman. I could do the deal, finish for the day, go home, have a couple of hours sleep, come back, take a part exchange from the lot, drive it all the way to Cardiff overnight, take a TT from them, bring it back and carry on with my day. So you can imagine the shock that the security guard in our Cardiff office got at 3:30 when a young lad in a scrappy Audi A3, which was the part exchange that I'd been given to take there because my manager didn't want to try and take it to auction. So he said, I can get out of that. Yeah. Sent me down there. It nearly broke down 3 times on the way. Ouch. So it was 3:30 in the morning and the security guard did not believe me. I was a young lad. Yeah. I was, probably 19 at the time. Right. And he was like, mate, there is no way I am swapping these cars. And I had the book pack, I had all the proper official stuff that we would need to do a transfer, and he just was not having it. And I was like, I have to be back at my dealer at the latest midday, but the woman wants to collect at midday, so it needs at least an hour. It has to go through our prep because I'm going to drive it 150 miles, so I might get a puncture on the way that I don't notice or something. Do you know what I mean? Eventually he finally I think I tried to call my manager's manager, basically annoyed a load of people at 4 a.m. And he wouldn't take their word for it. He's like, I don't know them. I need someone from Cardiff. Yeah. Text message went to him at some point. He opened the gate for me. And I just remember being in the outside lane of the M4 in a very nice, odd cruise at the early hours of the morning with a Volvo S80 and an Audi A6. Right. And they had both decided there was a couple of lorries on the inside lane, couple of slow moving traffic in the middle lane. They picked the outside lane. They had picked outside lane speed, and they were. And I was like, I'm just going to follow these guys, and get myself back. And got back to the dealer at 10:30 in the morning. Someone leaned in with a can of Red Bull, said, "Hang on, mate, okay." I was expected to work for the rest of the day. Car went to prep. Woman came to collect it. So that was not something I could repeat.
No, that's dedication. Fair go. Like, you get the gold star.
Got to say,
you got employee for the month as well?
No.
I
know.
Mate,
I know.
Seriously,
because the employee of the month was top seller, no matter what you'd done. And I think I was like 6th that month. It was a big team, big team. So being 6th, I was happy with. But yeah, that was just one of those ones. And the nice part of it was I got to drive one of these TTs on a nice long run. And I remember at the time thinking it's a very interesting sort of setup, where they've got, because you've got the back window shallowing behind you, so
it has got rear seats. It
has, if you need to put your golf clubs or a mate, then they can lay across there. But that's it. I think the doesn't then surprise me that they do have lots of dings and scrapes, because everything's falling away from you. And if you're, if you're not that conscientious with where you park and all that sort of stuff, I think you could quite easily get caught out.
Also, the easiest wheels in the world to curb.
Right.
So 18-inch.
Those multi spokes on there, so you've got lots of spokes to catch.
So let me see, ruined. You'll see, everyone will see them. Those wheels now, they always curbs. Yeah. So
they cap off the TT in this generation by looking at that 1.8 turbo. And I'll let you pick the story up, because you told me an interesting factoid about this.
What, the TT? Oh, right.
So
Okay, yeah. So the Sport. So I was working at Audi A2 to 2004, and the Sport was unveiled the following summer in 2005 as a run out. So the last Sports were up to 2006. So the Sport content was
quickly. Do you remember what the engine code for the Sport is?
I don't. Go for it.
That was your chance to be
really nerdy.
Chief Engineer of the Month. But BFV.
Okay, BFV. Right, BFV. Okay, cool, yeah. Because I remember I was having to brief my ex-manager from Audi at the time, because he was going to do a dealer conference and forgotten about the car, so he called me. And I was really telling him about it. Yeah, that's fine, we're still friends. So it had first TT with 2 seats. So they had taken out the rear seats, had some nice buttons in the front.
Prepay, because obviously the convertible.
10 points, absolutely. You're awake, good man. And so his first coupe, they never came as a roadster, had some lovely 18-inch multi-spoke wheels, had the body kit from the V6, so the front and rear diffusers, lovely, I think they did sprig blue in that as well, our favourite colour.
Well, maybe they did.
And they did some slight suspension geometry, but the key changes, but the key thing was with that car is the engine. So the 1.8T engine, that was the most powerful iteration of that engine ever offered by Volkswagen Group,
and which I didn't know before we were talking.
Just before 40 PS, and it had a weight reduction. So actually, the acceleration was pretty. It was already a boosty car. It was even more vivid with the Sport. So actually, it did feel a cut above in terms of overall performance, and the weight reduction improved the handling also. So that was probably the best to drive TT of all of them. Is actually the last one, the 240 horsepower Sport. And that's really sought after. That has been recognised. So there's also strong money now. They're also incredibly, a friend of mine has one, incredibly high mileage durability as well. That's an expression. They really do go on and on and on. And was a really, I think, fitting way to cap off that engine, because actually that was the last time that engine was used by Audi, and was because it was being replaced by the 2-litre TFSI used in the Golf GTI. So all the 1.8T. So that was the most powerful iteration. It was the last iteration of 1.8T, which is a bit of a tuner's car favourite, right? People loved really modifying that engine, that 1.8T. 1.8Ts came back in the next generation FSI powertrain, but they were not that original 1.8T 16-valve lump that was used for so long in so many performance to Volkswagen Group cars. So, and that went into everything. That was like Octavia VRS. I mean, that was Octavia Scout. All these different cars. Polo GTIs had that 1.8T engine. So yeah, that was the most powerful iteration was in that TT Sport, and it drove amazingly well, and it looked amazing as well. So look out from today. They'll be the most expensive used TTs you could find on the Mark 1 generation.
I'm struggling to even find them. Okay. Do you know? So I found a couple on some classic websites. Right. Now I've found a couple higher mileage, just on Auto Trader. Do you want to just have a little guess?
I know I called it on the RS podcast. I'm not sure I could on this one.
So just a quick one. If you do go searching for these, you do Audi TT and then Sport. Even though Sport, you'll find a load of like the Mark IIs, just in Sport spec.
Yeah, which is the base spec.
Yeah, but if you do put that into places like Auto Trader, it still brings up these ones. So it's basically the top is in with the bottom. Okay, cheapest one that's out there. What do you think?
I really couldn't call it. I wouldn't risk doing that to be too far out of whack.
$5,000.
Oh wow, that's a leggy one then.
157,000 miles.
I'll do it. Have they got a number on there? Can I email them? It's like, good.
And then you work up quite dramatically.
Yeah.
So I say that's the cheapest one. 100,000 miles is $8,000, but then you start to push up after that. So 12,000 for 75,000 miles, 15,000 for 57,000 miles.
That's not as much as I thought, because good V6s with a manual box.
Yeah.
I'm not doing dissimilar money.
I was going to say there's some really nice looking well kept, obviously, ones here. I'm guessing private sales. That one is 100,000 miles and it's 8,750, but it looks incredibly clean from the advert. The other one's 13 grand with 70,000 miles. So,
yeah, why part for that?
I'm wondering if we talked about this when we just did the TT review of it being. I said I've driven one because one came in once for part exchange. And no one really batted an eyelid at it. The fact that the top, the sort of
roof's black.
The roof's black, so you get a contrast, but it didn't really.
It's only that and the wheels, which made it look different instead of V6.
Yeah,
so it didn't really have much differentiation.
I think you had to know. I remember, this is funny. This is going back a very, very long time ago, and the reason I knew about it was because it had some great photography done in Evo magazine when it came out, and they'd taken it to the moors somewhere, and it was obviously one of those days in the UK where you get dark grey clouds.
Yeah,
the sun has popped out. You've got the greenery. Everything's wet, and the contrast and everything. And they had a red one of these.
Yeah,
and they waxed lyrical about it. Just this fantastic. For them, it was the final evolution of a TT that they had felt.
Finally got where it wanted to be.
Yeah, because
Audi UK press office chose some amazing specs for those cars.
Yes. So, considering all of that, yeah, I would have expected them now to become a little bit of a collector piece and probably all be on the 10 plus.
I think the podcast might demonstrate that's the way it needs to go. So,
yeah. Recaro seats in them.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to say about this generation TT before we move on to the second gen?
There was lots of experimentation within Volkswagen Group for different powertrains and those kind of things. So there's some pretty funky engines they tried to put in and do lots of studies before they ended up deciding on the flagship being the 3.2 V6 model.
Good.
So my understanding is they even tried the Audi S4 engine, the 2.7 bi-turbo.
No way.
But the weight of that block was very, very heavy and made the handling quite difficult. So they had to effectively would have had to put ballast in the boot to balance the car out. So therefore, the decision was made to include the 3.2 V6, which was a lot lighter, and no turbos to weigh it down. So they did.
I just found the concept. Yeah,
there we go.
30th anniversary of Quattro.
There we go.
So Imola yellow, 2.7 bi-turbo V6.
Yeah.
From the RS4.
Yeah.
375 horsepower. Manufactured 2001. It looks. I don't know how many of them are built. I'm guessing just one.
Built any, I think, which is a concept.
There is what I'm looking at a picture of one actually at a car show.
Right.
And it. Well, am I looking at one that someone's done themselves?
Might have been, but I'd say that it was a powertrain that they experiment on internally, but the V6, the 3.2, because it was lighter weight, no turbos, was considered the better option.
Yeah.
So
I think they did build this car, and they're using it as a showpiece car.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So whether it even runs,
anything possible. But yeah, because that platform was never designed. That was always for bigger platform cars with a longitudinally mounted engine rather than horizontally opposed. So I'd be very surprised they managed to productionize that with that much hassle. But they experimented with TT quite a lot internally. But I just say that for me, the quality and execution of Mark 1 TT was amazing, and it's been underappreciated for a long time. So that beautiful, dented low mileage car was not expensive at all when I bought it.
Really?
And I feel like today, finally, the TT is having its moment in the sun. But if you're going to go and buy one, they're quite spec sensitive. So make sure you get a 225 MAM or a 240 Sport, I think.
Do you think if you did end up, I don't know, someone offered you a crate, 200 quid, take my car away, and it's a 180. Do you think that do you think there's enough hardware there that with a bit of money spent, you could bring it up to a 225, or do you think the 223
remap it by all means? I mean,
take the turbo off,
04 turbo,
pay for a turbo on it, because the block's the same.
Yeah.
Change the exhaust system. I know it's not a proper 225 if you do that, but I'm just thinking.
Well, the chassis was basically the same between a 225 and 180.
Yeah.
For me, it was the suspension settings weren't different. They had a unique S-line suspension setting in Germany, but they ended up standardising that in the UK cars anyway to be a bit more.
We always get the hard ride. A hard ride. We've got terrible roads, and we love a hard ride.
We've got narrow little country roads where you need maximum body control and connection.
Yeah.
That's why they standardised it. So that was actually as part of the. Really nerding out now. 2003 model year change. They standardised the S-line suspension in the UK alongside those 18-inch wheels.
Do you think we are, if you looked at the US and the UK, do you think we're as far opposing as you could possibly be for what we want as standard suspension?
We used to be.
Okay, I know the US
is getting closer and closer because the US are appreciating the kind of strength of the kind of driving style that we do in terms of sports cars. You look at USA sports cars now; they're fantastic. They drive better than a lot of the European cars do. So
they've been on a journey.
They've been on a real
coming from up here,
down,
and we've been killing ourselves out.
Now they've overtaken us. So they're performance cars.
Yeah, okay.
One LE pack on a Camaro.
Yes, yeah.
Anyway, I digress. But in answer to your question, the UK is. But the UK, but also Germany, because the stiffer suspension means that autobahn speeds, they have better high-speed body control. So typically, in Germany for autobahns, they like a stiffer ride.
I suppose the only interesting for me is, well, do you know what? I was about to say something then that I think would there's a person that takes care of the roads in Germany who, even at me thinking it, just woke up from their dreams with a horrible nightmare. Because I was going to say, well, what if you hit a pothole on one of those autobahns at high speed? And then you realise that has never happened to anyone on an autobahn.
Well, bleedings, scanning equipment. Honestly, I've seen it. It's incredible. The road conditions in Germany on autobahns are absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, we don't have
safely do that.
We do get
no at the moment. No, I'm confident it might get better. But to the point about suspension body control, we do have unique roads in the UK which are really, really twisty, single track country roads.
Yes.
Speed limit is 60 miles an hour.
So it's interesting. We want the stiffness in the suspension because of that.
Yeah.
And the Germans would want the stiffness in the body control because they want the high speed.
Very different.
You're right. But you end up with the same.
Like that, you end up with the same thing. So the Bentley Flying Spur had a German suspension setting. To mean that when you're doing 200 miles an hour on the
you're steady,
and it is super steady. So there you go.
Second generation. We got nothing more to say about the first.
No, first. I suppose to summarise the first. Started had a difficult had a great start with the concept car. Really had a moment with the high speed stability that Audi moved very quickly to address very successfully. So people have basically forgotten about that. Demonstrates positive action and good PR gets you out of those situations. So well done, Audi. And finished the Mark 1 with the 240, which was incredible car. But yeah, they managed to take, because it ended a really positive car, but the Mark 2 took it to the next level.
So Mark 2 comes out in 2006.
Yeah.
Definitely is in the UK in 2006. I don't know for the world. I'd guess there's a delivery gap. So maybe for the Aussies, for the American, maybe South African and stuff, they're probably looking at 2007. But yeah, we were 2006, and this is then the next platform. So it's a completely new platform that goes underneath this one. So it's coded PQ25, and I think the other one was PQ34. So yeah, okay.
But it was shared with the Mark 5 Golf.
Yes. So we've got this big transition. A lot of the cars that we mentioned earlier also get this new platform. We talked previously about what a big factor this was for Volkswagen and the Golf GTI name sort of really surging back after the Mark IV. This car has a fair old life, so it does 8 years. So first generation, if we say 99, because I'd say there are some 98s knocking about, but if we say 99, and it did go into 06, but really 05
down.
So sort of 6 years of core sales.
Yeah.
This is going to sort of span an 8 year of core sales, because even in 14 they do a lot of sort of run out models and stuff. So it's got to exist for quite a while. This car,
and it had a lot of activities throughout its life cycle.
Because if you think about it, you look at some of the cars that go onto this platform, they completely change platform and become new models, and some of them are refreshed and then refreshed again. And this has got to live on through that
trucking
era. So this is, I think, this happens on the Mark III that we'll get onto, but the Mark II has to become it becomes a really wide breadth car because of the number of engines it's going to have to support. So
not all at the same time, so they actually staggered and moved.
Yes, we should say, and we'll just start off at the entry point, I think, here. So there's a 1.8 TFSI.
Yeah,
it is not the old 1.8 engine, which can get a little bit confusing because they're both 1.8 turbocharged engines.
Yeah.
But it's
not the original.
Yes, the old one is gone.
Daddy.
Yeah. And that's the entry point for this car. I don't actually know if I don't think it launches with it. I think
it does. It launches a 2-litre T and 3.2 V6.
Okay. So it keeps that VR6 going.
Yep.
It gets a new 2-litre.
The Golf.
And then I'm going to say 2008. I'm just going to see if I can find. Did you know when it gets to 1.8 officially?
Oh, I think it was the first major life cycle actually. So 2008 sounds about right, maybe a bit later than that. But
Yeah.
the reason they bought out 1.8 later is for the same reason that the Mark 1, because they were making, good margin on the early launches. They'll bring out typically speaking, as a life cycle action, you'll bring out the lower cost models later to help drive sales as the car starts to age against its competitor set. So it makes complete sense. You wouldn't launch with a lower priced version from launch because it's got all the halo effect of the car, and people will pay more for a new car.
So you're absolutely right. There is an exception to what you're going to say. So Germany does get the 1.8.
It doesn't surprise me. They do like a wide breadth and bandwidth. It's a broader point actually, if I can make it.
But they are the only market. So you were not wrong, because it literally is just Germany.
They do believe in massive engine proliferation, and which in other markets is not required. So they want to have so much choice, even though the uptake of these engine combinations might be tiny as a mix of a car, they still want to offer it because they believe that's important to offer the breadth. That's less and less so now, but bear in mind, the time the Mark II TT came out, Audi were in a really strong position. It was super successful, loads of R&D budget, loads of R&D spend, going into every niche to try and overtake Mercedes and BMW properly, which they did at various different points, sales-wise. So Audi were basically throwing a lot of money to get the product even better and even more choice to capture market share. So that doesn't surprise me, knowing the German market as I do. But in the UK, it was very much 2-litre T. Because,
and we don't get it, and the world doesn't get it till mid-2009 actually. So it's much like I said 08. It's not even until
again, it wasn't required in the UK because we're selling all the cars with the higher spec engines.
There is though another engine that comes out in 2008 prior to the one.
Is it a first?
It's first. 2-litre diesel.
Yes.
So a TDI, only a Quattro.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really interesting. Friend of mine actually bought one of these.
Yeah.
He's had several TTs, and I'm tempted to say this was his first because he was doing an extremely long commute. He works between like 200 miles from where he lived. He got to stay up there, but he needed
first diesel sports cars.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this when we just did the Audi TT review, but it's very difficult to think of any diesel sports.
Yeah.
The SLK we mentioned in the review.
SLK. I can't think of anything. I mean, something.
I'm surprised BMW didn't try and give it a go.
Yeah, never did the Z4.
No.
They had the 3 Series convertible diesels, but they never did the Z4.
Yeah, but it's not this, is it? The 3 Series convertible goes up against what is that, A4 or A5 as it then becomes.
Customer came into showroom saying I want a diesel Z4. They had a chance selling him into a 3 Series Cabrio.
Yeah. So interesting. Obviously, Audi did feel there was a market. They did actually sell a good number of them. Yeah. I don't think it went to a lot of markets. I don't know. It's going to tell me.
It's very much a European thing.
Yeah.
So
do you reckon the Aussies got it?
I don't think the Aussies did get it.
No,
actually.
okay.
But it was the engine was affected by a certain situation in 20 as well. So that was that 2-litre T. Yeah. But yeah, it came out. There were at that point it was the 2-litre 16-valve turbo diesel engine. It had been out in the A3 since 2003. But it was in the 170 PS,
which is a really interesting aspect of it because they could have clearly they wanted to still be on that sports edge because they didn't even offer the 140 that they had in all their other days out. They just went.
Well, there was just the negative in because it was the first to get diesel engine in sports car. The negative connotations around diesel in sports car effectively, and they wanted to get over that by making it as dynamic and performance focused as possible. So actually, the acceleration with that engine was just as quick as a 2-litre, well, just nearly as quick as a 2-litre T.
Yep.
And I owned one, so I did 8,000 miles, and I had a 2-litre TDI. Quattro S-Line in 2013.
Yeah.
So quite a late one and fabulous thing. So it would the engine actually did quite a lot of exhaust tuning with the engine to make it sound more appealing.
I do remember so when my friend bought one that it didn't. So am I right in saying it's a common rail engine?
Yeah.
So
it's not pump duze. It's not like the proper clatter of 0.9.
It didn't clatter.
Far more refined.
And when you sort of punched it for acceleration, I'm not going to say it sounded like a TTRS, but it had a little bit of its own pleasing noise. Especially if you were a bit of a diesel enthusiast, but even if you weren't, it didn't sound,
it was inoffensive.
Yes, that's the word.
And it had a gruffness to it, and actually Audi did some really successful work to try and make it more what's the word, acceptable, for a diesel sports car. And it was great, all that torque, quattro drivetrain. They never made a front wheel drive version. I think it's because the torque would have maybe caused torque steer, which would have been unbecoming in a sports car.
That's an interesting.
Therefore, just pair it with that Haldex differential four-wheel drive system, and it was very, very cohesive, and the range was fantastic. You could get over 500 miles out of a tank of diesel. I did a lot of miles very quickly in mine, and really, really good car. I get why people have an issue with it, because having a diesel sports car overall, but that's a conceptual issue, not a specific TT. So yeah.
Let's just cover off the opposite end of that scale, which is the 3.2, the VR6 engine does continue, but it doesn't last for very long. I think it's 09, I think, is the last year. So they facelifted the car 2010 for 2011 model year, or 2010 model year, I can't quite remember. But at that point, they drop I would guess for emissions program, because we're going into Euro 5.
And we replaced it with the first for the Audi TT.
Yes, that's probably more of the factor, isn't it? Yeah. So is there anything to say about the VR6 in this generation?
No, but the thing I want to point out on the Mark II in general is that the Audi did a lot of learning compared to the Mark I in terms of drivability. So although it's based on the Golf Mark V shared platform, it's a platform share, so across Volkswagen Group they shared it. With the TT, they actually had a lot of aluminium front-end components to reduce weight and move it more central in the car. So therefore, the weight distribution made the car feel far less nose heavy than it would have done otherwise with normal panels and those kind of things. So
especially with that diesel engine in there.
Exactly. So, so actually, the drivability was really, really. I think for me, it drove even better than the Mark V Golf GTR. Lower central gravity, wider track, and lighter front end,
longer car.
So
you've got sort of more stability going on.
So really it was actually, because it didn't have the shock and awe because it's second generation, some of the curves had been rounded off. It still had this amazing interior, still really great from outside, but it didn't have the shock and awe because that happened in the Mark I. Also the first TT with proper sat-nav, because the Mark I's had a little tiny CD-ROM system. This had proper sat-nav. But now it was about as it on the overall concept of the Mark II. But yeah.
So we've talked about 1.8, and we're going to come back to the 2 litre because it needs a little bit more filling in. We've talked about the diesel.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything more we can add on diesel or on the 1.8. I don't want to feel like we're just overstepping it, but it's the base entry engine. It is an EA 888 engine which shares a lot of componentry.
160 PS, I think.
Something like that. Yeah, I think it might be
front wheel drive only. No, quite on that.
Yeah. So it really is sort of, look, this is the budget entry point engine that you go for is the 1.8. The VR6 we've also covered off. That was more, I think it existed initially because we don't have the TTS, which we're going to come on to.
Yeah.
So they needed the high power.
And it was a carryover engine, and it would fit in the platform already, and they needed a price flagship when the car first came out.
And the R32 Golf is keeping it.
But interestingly, they never referred to it as a VR6. As a 3.2 engine, it was just the V6.
It's funny, isn't it?
It was a brand.
But is that a Volkswagen thing?
Yeah,
VR6.
They never said a Volkswagen either. So the 3 point the only one to be called the VR6 was the 2.8 in the Golf and the 2.9 in the Corrado. After that, they called everything just the V6. But so it was still a VR6 engine, right?
So when people online say V6 and someone comes along and corrects them, you can be like, well, that's what Audi called it.
But it's never called that.
Yeah. So we've covered off 1.8. We've covered off the 3.2.
Yeah,
covered off the diesel. Yeah. I know we've got to do quite a bit on the 2 litre because there's a lot of and we've got one special engine to come at the end. But the 2 litre comes in at entry. Okay, 200 horsepower, 197 horsepower, 200 PS.
Great engine.
It probably moves the game along for this because it's not coming in at the 225 power of the previous one. So a lot of people might sort of say, well, hold on, I've got less power than I had before, but they're going to get some options. But the torque that engine produces, and the torque from basically nothing, means the 1.8 turbo had it, yes, but you haven't lost it. You know, because you can sometimes lose when things like this happen.
No, the peaks and troughs in torque. It's very linear.
And yet we've increased fuel economy. There's a whole new era. I mean, it's a new generation of engine that's going into it. And so that exists from launch, okay? It does get a slight update when the car's updated. I think it goes to 211.
Doesn't 211 PS?
Is it PS? Yeah. So sort of 209 horsepower, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just wonder, they don't ever give that 2 litre any more than that, do they?
No, that was it. And
11 and 200
to the end. I think it went. It got late in the life cycle. The 2 litre did get some attention. Yes, because they promoted the 1.8 to a 2 litre and had a lower tune of the 2 litre T later for an entry level position. They dropped the 1.8 out, but that's right. Virtually,
you were right by 1.8 had 160 PS, 158 horsepower.
Like that,
yeah. So this is sort of the key. It's the backbone seller for the Audi TT to have the 2 litre engine.
And you can have it end to end,
yeah, and you can have it in a lot of different specs. Starting with that sort of more entry, I think they actually did it as like an SE.
Did I? Yeah.
So the one
TT,
I had one for a while,
yeah,
that just had the smaller 5 spokes on it, and you can go up to S line.
the ones you mean. Oh,
Yeah, 17s. I said those they were. Those are the ones when you used to sell them back in the day. The person would really, really, really need to know how to put the spoiler up.
Yeah.
That was the one that parked up.
Reliable spoiler now, didn't it? Yeah.
Yes. So it had but you could raise it yourself, or I think it was 75 miles an hour. So it's basically putting a sign up to the boys.
Well, it had a button.
It had a button, so you could do it yourself. And let's say, if you had it with small 5 spokes,
Yeah.
you had to know where the button was.
And some clever police officers thought, oh, well, if I see a TT going past with a spoiler up, it must be speeding.
Yeah.
That's why the Volkswagen Group put the button in. So they would say, and the reason the button went in technically is because you could clean under where the spoiler was. That was the logic. I'm not saying that officially, Miles.
No,
Just saying that's one of those things.
I just, when I was younger, you saw one of these on a night out, it always was parked with the spoiler up. Of course. That was just, and I say it would be the base one, the SE with the 5 spokes.
Yeah.
But it was,
So that the spoiler up.
upgrade the wheels, seeing this. Good point. So they were front wheel drive as well. So you really are leaning more to basically Golf GTI package on those cars, which did it a lot of favours. Actually, I just want to double check the torque figure on them. They do get quite a big torque upgrade because we talked about the 10 horsepower increase, but the torque increase is 70 newton meters. So there's actually a bigger jump on that end. Or if you do pound
across a broader, they didn't have the whoosh bang of the BAM engine, which punched you in the back with its outward delivery and turbo boost. It was far more linear, far more mature power curve, but somehow managed to still be quite exciting.
I'm just trying to think of what the 1.8. So yeah, the 1.8 with 225 was 280 newton meters, 207 foot-pound. And so that's what the 2 litre launches with. So same torque, slightly less horsepower, but it gets a big, but I say it's 50 pound-feet, or I say, I told you it in newton meters, 70 newton meters, but depending on what you do. Although when they updated the engine, it's a slightly narrower torque band. It's interesting, they've given it it's more like a diesel. It's funny. I find
It's the direct injection, so it sometimes sounded like one as well.
Yeah, that sort of ticking,
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny how I think a lot of engines have, around the year 2010, they all started to sound and drive a little bit more diesely. Not a V10 Lamborghini, but
It's the kind of direct injection corn rail type of thing, the FSI unit as well. That was absolutely the thing, ticking fuel injectors.
And that's all about improving economy.
Yeah, high pressure direct injection. I mean, improved power as well. There were trade-offs. I think you're right. They can sound from startup. A 2 litre T can sound pretty clatter.
Fine once they get going.
Yeah, exactly.
But it seems the cold start thing. You need to be standing at the back, not the front.
Yeah.
But this engine has got legs, so it's then going to get. So they're finally going to give the TT its. The car that I suppose if you're a sports car fan, you were really hoping that they would give it in the previous generation, and they never quite got there. They gave it in the sport, which is the TTS. So 2008, from my memory. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I think it might mean. Yeah, I think it was maybe late 2008 to 2009 model year potentially. But that car had different body styling. It had some nice 19-inch wheels as well. They launched it. I think I remember one of the launch communication guys being bright Imola yellow. And it was very much the S brand, I think, was because there was also the S3 before then.
Yes, so the S3 had existed.
S4 and S2 had existed for a long time. So basically bringing S into the TT vernacular and aligning it to other Audi models in the range. But yeah, really good. X had 200, I think around 265 PS, the first generation.
Yeah. 272 PS, 268 horsepower is what it's officially listed
Yeah,
at.
for sure.
Interestingly, though, so it's 350 newton meters of torque, which is what the facelift 2-litre regular turbo gets. So they basically give it torque. When they do the 210 upgrade, they up the torque to what the TTS had.
Yeah,
but they don't give it the top end of power. So interesting how they would have balanced that off to try and make sure that the TTS was always ahead.
Yeah, and there would have been a lot of calculations about that. I mean, that was that might have been at that point the highest strung that 2-litre T had been done up to that point within Group, and obviously it went high still. But so actually they made fairly big. They'd seen the progress of other rival brands and making their performance coupes. They felt this was the time to go hard with that. Adjusted the Haldex four-wheel drive system, adjusted the suspension, improved steering, had some really nice detailing inside the car. So, for example, grey back dials, which is quite an S feature. Even some, I think, some headlight internals changed as well. So, quite a compelling package of TTS, and it was going to hunt down Porsche and BMW for driving honours. So, yeah, that was part of it.
And I think it got a lot. I mean, that's where its group tests actually put in a lot of the time. I suppose interesting side to that. Sorry, the dates you're thinking of, by the way, are the US dates. So they only got the car from very, very late 08.
Oh, right, okay.
So basically a 2009.
Sure.
Whereas in the UK, we got it from, you could get it on an 08 plate.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Few of them. But, basically 09, that's when they really come out.
Yeah.
But you can get them, if you're looking on the used market in the UK, mid 08 is.
And you could get them in S-Tronic and in manual.
Yes. Which I suppose the sales figures told their own story because, as we'll find out later, is that ML options are going to stay around forever. So the TTS sort of proof concept, do you think that they can keep going with the TT into more and more performance? Because the next step is going to be TTRS. Do you think they used the success of the TTS to qualify that? Or do you think from the very inception point in 06, because what's the first...
The first car to get the engine was the TTRS. Cylinder.
That 2.5.
So and that came out in 2009. The RS3 didn't get it to 2 years later. Yeah, so they always knew it was coming in the RS3 to later on. Interesting point. I say that they think they had to do a TTS, I'd say, at that point, because everything else had an S. So therefore, the only sports car in the Audi range was the only one without the performance flagship, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So therefore, there wasn't really a choice. I mean, they for me anyway, up to that point, the car hadn't really had any... They should have redone an S.
So there's no A1 either. Well, and there is an S1.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so for me, it had to be kind of
A2.
It's gone by that point. Yeah. So I think basically they were building much of a full S because they'd seen the power of M Sport and AMG and all those kind of things. They had to step up their performance branding because that was what was selling premium cars in Europe at the time. And in the UK, very rich mix of things like S-Line and those kind of things. So the styling of the TTS very, very quickly cascaded into the S-Line pack, which we all know and love, and which is the biggest mix of all the TT packs. It was S-Line, even though it's most expensive. So,
do you think, because one of the talking points when this car came out was the fact that it was a 2-litre 4-pot engine with 4 exhausts, so an exhaust per cylinder was a conversation.
4 exhausts.
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, I don't know what the first, I'm sure we could go back 100 years and they'll be, but this was really from the modern era, one of the first times you saw quad exhaust go on to not a high number of cylinders. Quad exhaust, really, we associate them with Ferrari.
Yeah.
With V8s. You don't really associate them with a 4
much, doesn't it? Especially since the TTRS didn't have 4 exhausts.
No, the 2 big ovals there. Exactly. I mean, as I say, you've got an exhaust per cylinder, which now is
good differentiation, right? Because at the time, genuine exhaust still had some value, right? So if you think about take the job, E90 BMW. So you only got the twin rear exhaust on either side when you went for the 335i or the 335d.
Yes,
that kind of thing. And actually exhaust, it was a thing that was
the defining thing of the car. That was, you've got the cheap one because you've got one exhaust.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I think the 2-litre T had twin exhaust, but they were just single exit at the back. So yeah, but you're right. That was actually I never thought of that. That was actually big part of the styling comms piece in the back from the TTS, apart from the branding, was those bodies.
Because as I say, the S3 doesn't on this era. Twin exhaust.
Would work on a hatch, would it?
I mean, the next era S3 does.
Does it have 4 exhausts?
Yeah. And the Golf R has 4 exhausts.
Oh, you're right.
So they all becomes a trend after this. That's 4 exhausts on a...
There were bright chrome ones on the TTS, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like black. I mean, the Golf R ones are fairly subtle. And Larry on a TTS.
I remember the dealer I was working at, we had a very good relationship with a small parts company within the town that we were in. And the girl that would come and deliver the parts, if we needed something like on the day, the guy's daughter, he bought her a TTS, brand new. And the thing, every part of it was always sparkling. She obviously loved it. And she would just come in a TTS to deliver, a wing mirror or something that we just needed desperately. And you just used to see it all the time. But it was not subtle about four exhaust, the 5 spokes, those chunky 5 spokes. Yeah. She had it in one of the blues. That it was, I can't remember the name of it.
C-Pang?
It probably was C-Pang blue. Very, very good. Very good. And it was. You wouldn't say, there's if you knew anything about cars. That wasn't a TT. That was a TTS. And
it's true. The differentiation really worked on that car.
Yeah,
it went further than BMW. Went probably further than Mercedes.
But as I say, that the 4 exhaust coming in for a 2 litre is quite a factor for that, because I can't. I'm sure there probably would be a car, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. I can't think of an 05, for example, a 4-cylinder with 4 exhausts. I'm sure someone will come along and tell me, but.
There you go. Put it in the comments, everyone.
Yes, there you go. So, they have the TTS.
Yeah.
It obviously does well, probably better than they may have thought.
And it's a value proposition. It's quite good because it's pitched up against the base model Cayman and Mazda, but it had more powerful engine. It had 4-wheel drive and a turbo.
And so from there, you can only move up.
Yeah.
And we're going to move up with, when I mentioned the 3.2 V6 of the R6, you said about the weight of it in the nose of the Mark 1 and how that, so this initial, the 5-cylinder, some of you will know, is still going today, but it isn't this engine.
No.
This is the iron block, much heavier first iteration of the 5-cylinder.
And the genesis of that engine was an interesting one.
Yeah, how do you know the...
the engine originally came from North America. So actually the engine was the iron block used in the base model Jetta, the 2.5.
No way.
And they put on TTRS it. So because the Jetta couldn't really make do with the 2 litre, it needed more oomph and torque for the American market, because they were lower on fuel as well.
Yeah.
So therefore it was a super tough, durable engine. So therefore that was the start point for the RS.
Do you know, would they have done that from the ground up for the VW group, or did they take the 4-cylinder unit and add a cylinder? So, like within the engineering of the engine?
I don't know how they came about. I know that there were certain constraints around toughness, durability, and also cost. So an iron block is quite straightforward, and they need the extra capacity in the 4-cylinder engine. So it made complete sense.
So they could have taken the learnings from the 4-cylinder and then
very possibly
done something
from it. I just found that as an interesting piece about what the genesis of the engine was, but it actually came from North America, one of the platforms there. So yeah.
So the North America, they do like, I see this a lot when we do the buyer's guides on the channel, that North Americans are really, really keen on longevity, reliability, and more so than I think.
Their average mileage is quite high.
Yeah, and that's going to be a part within this. I don't know a market in the world. The Aussies maybe, but the Aussies are more about stuff gets snapped in half in the outback. You know what I mean? Like they're not talking about... The expectation in the US is to be able to do an oil service and do 200,000 miles. I'm not saying for everyone in the US. I'm just saying that there's a little bit of a pushback. You talk about a Mercedes and people say, yeah, but why do I want a Mercedes? They all break after 80,000 miles. It's like, well, they don't, clearly, because there's taxis in Europe with 500,000 kilometers on them.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, but the running costs are high for them because they've got to import parts, and parts are more expensive, specialists and all that sort of stuff.
Parts and turbos and durability and cost of production and all those kind of things. And torque is really important for that market as well.
So they just seem really sensitive to, there'll be one engine, for a Mercedes, for a BMW, for a Toyota, whatever it is, and they'll all circle around that one engine. And like in this case, you're saying it's that 2.5 engine that is just solid. It can
not
take
complicated, and very importantly, runs very well on low RON fuel.
Yeah,
and regular unleaded in the US is a lot lower RON than it is in Europe, for example. So I think that's part of it.
Because they use a different measure, don't they? They don't use RON. What do you remember what it is?
Is it A? I'm not sure. Someone's going to post in the comments though.
AKI.
So there's a different way of measuring it, but it's lower bang per per litre than it is in typical European fuels, especially compared to Japan, which is even higher. But I took us on a massive tangent. But I just found it interesting the genesis of that 2.5 litre engine in the
AKR.
TTR. Thank you, mate. TTRS. It came from quite humble origins at the very core of the engine, literally and figuratively. It came from quite humble origins, but very tough, durable origins. And that's considered, for a tuner engine, that generation 1 RS engine, the 5-cylinder, is actually really strong. And obviously Audi had a very long history of 5-cylinder engines. So by that point, the RS2 had been out, and obviously the original UR Quattros, the S4 Quattros, I had a couple of those, amazing. So a 5-cylinder turbo engine was a great thing. So actually a return for that, if TT needed an injection of sports car halo-ness, that was a hell of a way to do it within Audi Group, to take the legacy of having a 5-cylinder turbo engine and put it into their sports car, and doing it really, really well. So it launched with 340 PS.
Where did it launch, Owen?
I don't know. What was the first market to get it? I don't know. Have you got it in front?
What year was it launched?
Oh, I think my first car was 2009, my understanding.
Okay, it was launched in 2009.
Right, okay.
It was launched at a European auto show.
Oh, I think quite glamorous. So I'm going to say Paris.
No.
Oh, no.
You had the right idea, but...
Oh, glamorous? Oh, blimey. Geneva.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes, it was Geneva. So you got it in 2, I'll give you that.
Thank you. I'll take that. But the RS, again, it was the first car to get that resurgent 5-cylinder turbo engine. And again, the RS3 didn't get it for a couple of years later. So that was a really big talking point. It was a new flagship RS. It was really putting TT back at the pinnacle. Again, TT as S was very late in the context of Audi to arrive. And it drove really well.
And this is the only, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I believe it, this is the only time the 5-cylinder gets offered with a manual gearbox.
I think you're right.
Sorry, from this point onwards. Because I think,
all manual.
Yeah. All early stuff. But,
right,
but this, because when it goes into the RS3, that's the...
Yeah, I'll switch my RS3 Hunt to a TTRS. I love a manual box.
Just a very, interesting moment in Audi history. I'm guessing there was a lot of limiting factors for them to then continue offering it, but possibly at launch. I mean, can you think of what would have been the conversation around not just doing automatic? Or perhaps a paddle shift?
I think at that stage, the automatics as we know them was still pretty basic.
But I mean, this would have been a DSG.
Yes, okay, exactly. Yeah, and I think it was still GSD at rather than S-Tron.
Yeah.
So what was the premise of what was the question again?
So they've got the engine, they've got a DSG box. They do offer it as an option.
Yeah.
But instead of just locking it in that you have to have a DSG, as they do in every generation afterwards in every other RS with a 5-cylinder, they decide to leave the option for a manual. And I think as standard, it's manual.
Yes.
You have to upgrade to... I don't know if it was a no-cost option or what, but
absolute positioning piece. You're right. Commercially, it probably made very little sense because they would have known that the uptake of the manual box was going to be relatively small. But if they're talking about true sports car branding up against Porsche, who are all still manual on the box string, came at the time, and again BMW, Z4s all have.
So these were press car specials.
They sold a few. You look at
I bet
for TTRS.
I wonder if I
find the early ones. I'm sure you can. The actual mix of manuals isn't too bad. You can still find them. But yes, the vast majority overall of TTRS was the DSG. But yeah, I think in answer to your question, positioning piece.
That's what because we know that they decide. In manual,
it's slower than the S-Tron. Than the DSG.
Yeah,
I mean the acceleration was slower because the second to that.
I just it always interested me. And we're going back years now, but I remember when I had an S3. I remember the rumor of there was going to be an RS3. I remember it launching and thinking to myself, I might get a deposit together because I'd just been in the Audi hatch sphere.
Yeah.
It was a bit too much money. I think that it was a markable jump from the S.
But that was probably, in answer to your question, that probably was the reason the RS3 was DSG only, or by that point it might have been S-Tronic, was because the uptake of manual and TTRS wasn't enough to justify the RS.
How many TTRS manuals do you think are for sale on Auto Trader today when we're filming this?
3.
No?
Oh, right. More? Okay. Well, okay. I'm going to go double digits then. I'm going to say 11.
Not bad. 9.
Okay, 9.
No.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, one of them is a convertible. Right. So that would have been an interesting spec into into the dealership, I want the manual TTRS with no
You can
roof.
hear it better.
Yeah, and I think that's the person that was shopping around and went to Porsche and went to BMW, and then they were like, "Well, what's your one?" And the salesman went, "Oh, we can do a convertible, and we can do manual." And
Listen to it.
but money-wise,
Oh,
because they're very specific, but they're specific to the people watching this,
yeah,
to me and you,
yeah.
to the Audi Elite, but they're not specific to the general.
I know they didn't have the big wheel arches that RS3s and stuff had, and all those kind of things.
Right.
So I mean, it does get a big front and rear spoiler and diffuser and stuff, and the side sills, but actually,
because the TT already is pumped up, so I think it gets. It's just marginal bit on the front arches get
exactly a little spats in the front.
Yeah.
Was the wider track.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to do a wider track. Good point, actually. The bigger engine.
Yeah.
That's a clip. That was because it was a longitudinally horizontally enhanced.
Yeah, so you've
big wide
in the wheels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Price.
Oh,
They're all very, very close together.
yeah, mileage.
They are all between. Oh, there is a 100,000 mile here,
Right.
and there's 117 there, but they're all between about 80 and 50 mileage.
Probably going to say between about 14 to 22.
Very good, very good. So bottom of the market is 12 grand. Interestingly, that's for the convertible.
Oh.
There's 100,000 miles on it.
Okay.
12 grand for that one. Then you really move to sort of basically the market is around 14,000 points.
Okay.
That's the 500 quid around there.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of outliers. So there's a 66,000 mile and a 55,000 mile, and they're 20 grand.
Right. Okay.
Not that many of them, but that's just the manuals. I don't know what the general market is.
But yeah, I mean that is a very good value performance car, which had a lot of engineering focus on it, so they get that engine installation correct. So that is quite a recommendable car, I think, a Mark II TTRS. And it's had those amazing big twin exhaust pipes at the back as well, big oval exhaust pipes.
So the cheapest you can buy anyone is 11 grand. So they're sort of entry point in the market, I guess.
Well, an RS5.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Is the price point ain't too different of those two? So TTRS or an RS5?
Yeah, I was about to say, why is it Audis? But actually, it's all cars, isn't it? They're 15 years old, big engine.
Yeah,
the times we live in, the way people are wanting
availability as well.
Parts availability is going to be a factor as well. So that's the TTRS in the Mark II. It exists, so it's you can buy them in the UK from the late 2009, which is essentially its launch, and obviously that will continue until the very end. I don't know if they did
they did a plus. So they had the standard TTRS was 340 PS. The plus upped it with a bit more hardcoreness up to 360 PS, and had a bit more bespoilered, different wheels, the usual shebang. And they were still calling it plus rather than performance.
They work on it plus at that point.
So yeah, and nice car, but it was still quite typically Audi. I mean, we had a Haldex all-wheel drive system that didn't really have much of a rear bias torque split, heavy engine over the front. I mean, that iron block 5-cylinder was a heavy lump, but the performance and the soundtrack were incredible in that car. So if you went into high-speed cornering or twisty road action, those kind of things, then and you wanted the legs and the performance and the feel-good factor and the noise, TTRS is a good place to go. Ultimately, a Cayman or Boxster probably still drove better in terms of dynamics and those kind of aspects, but really great high-speed GT car, really appealing car, especially that money. Amazing.
2012, just as a side note, if you are looking at buying one, there is actually a minor update specifically to the RS, to the engine, and it's because of the RS Q3. So there's a concept for that. Audi make a few adjustments to that version of it that's going to go into the Q3, and so they decide they'll take the learnings from the concept of that car and they apply it in from 2012. But that doesn't take away anything you were saying about the plus. It's just a side note there. If you don't buy a plus, there is the
RS Q3 didn't get the same level of horsepower, so the RS Q3 had about 306 PS, whereas the TTRS ran with more power.
It's interesting that they would. Well, yeah, I suppose they let the market decide on that one. But yeah, so like you said, there's a power upgrade for the Plus, and then that it comes in 2012. So it has that upgraded engine for the Plus, and then we say goodbye to it. That's the end of the Mark.
Great way to end on Mark II TT.
Anything we should say about the 8J generation?
2 litre T. There's a one make race series in the UK for 2 litre T Mark II Audi TTs, and if there's interested in motorsport, it's a really cost effective way of getting into motorsport. The cars handle really well, and the reason that series is so appealing at an entry level motorsport point is because the running of those cars is really low cost.
So you buy, is it fixed to an engine? Is it 2 litre?
Yeah, 2 litre T. But you could have a choice of DSG or manual, because the DSGs are actually as quick. So what's the meta race car? But I've seen.
So for the fun, you want the manual, but ultimately you're going to be switching to the
DSG. But I've priced it all up, as you can imagine. I've calculated race through the modification costs, and it's actually not bad at all. So if you want to have a really capable race car, track car,
so you could go out, buy one of these for, let's say, $4,000.
Yeah. For a nice one.
Yeah, I mean, probably 3, but let's say if you're going to race it, you want something that's not been crashed or had a conquerors.
Yeah.
So let's just say $4,000 buys you the car.
Yeah.
What do you know? What modifications you have to do to it?
Bits is about $5,000.
$5,000 on top.
It's control tires, control coilovers, control safety gear.
Probably a lock TCU or some sort of locking that you want.
But the car, I mean, if you think about it, it's a much better track car than a Mark V Golf GTO.
Yeah.
It's really well suited for it.
Yeah.
But you just don't associate track prowess with an Audi TT, right? Hence the reason the RS was born, I'm guessing.
Under $10,000 realistically, you can have that ready to go in that race series. And do you know what they race? Like how many times a year? Or
I think it might be a support race to the BTCC potentially.
Oh, cool.
So
wow.
just have a look at that. I priced. I bet it had a race free, so I did price entry to that season, and I just found it interesting. The proposition as a race car of a TT is actually very appealing, because the part availability, because the engine's so ubiquitous, is massive, and they're lighter at the front end and more performance focused than the Golf. So,
and if you do have a bit of an incident on track, maybe a front wing gets bent or something. There's so many out there in breakage yards that you'll.
And exactly right. So as a race car, that or maybe an unexpected end to as Mark II TT discussion, but it's a very compelling proposition. So have a look at that series.
The one thing that's just stood out to me, I just want to double check this, is I've just seen there's a quote that there's a lot of awards that the TT won or was finalist within, but one of them was about it being 2019 IC cast. This is just off Wikipedia. Just got it at the bottom here. IC study named the TT as the longest lasting sports car, so it's the most likely to exceed 150,000 miles of all sports cars.
There must have been some statistics and numbers around that, because I would think that Honda would have things to say about that with the S2000. But yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, also the expensive use of aluminium, less risk of corrosion. Why not? Yeah, easy availability.
I just double checked the wording to make sure they didn't say the most number of, because that would make it obvious they sold more than S2000s. But no, it doesn't say that. So
okay,
like you say, maybe they're looking at rust factor, or maybe people just.
Maybe the One Make Race Series organizer spotted that quote and thought this is a perfect car. It's secure, because durability is what matters in those environments, right?
I wonder whether people with S2000s just simply don't run the mileage that high.
Maybe.
Like they probably put some, like they did their normal years, and people realised how special S2000s were, but they were never coming back after, what was it, 2011?
S2000 stopped in 2009.
Sorry, 2009. That was the end of that. So maybe people realised we're not going to get that again, and
potentially that'll be interesting to see what the source is for that. But it wouldn't surprise me, because the car, if you get into a TT Mark 1 or Mark 2, you trial the switches, buttons and knobs, it feels beautifully well made. Reminds me of a early 90s Mercedes C-Class in terms of the quality of all the switch clicks and those kind of things. So I've owned all 3 generations of TT, and the Mark II was very, very impressive. I know I had the diesel version, but it was still the durability, longevity, everything. So again, it doesn't surprise me. The mechanicals by the time I went to that TT were very well known and durable as well. So yeah, great car, TT, Mark II, really good.
Yeah, sorry, I did just have a quick little look at where this is all coming from, but it's some US data, and it seems like you're talking about quite marginal numbers of cars at the end of it. But the TT, so it's 4.3% of all of the cars that were registered, I think in the US, had gone over 150,000 miles, and 0.4% had gone over 200,000 miles. Now, the next car is the MX-5, 2.8% for 150, and then 0.6. 200. But SL Corvette is 0.7%, Camaro M6, Porsche 911 is 0.5%. Doesn't have. So I'm wondering if that's a case of there's not a lot of data for the Honda.
Potentially.
This sometimes happens. When I used to be an analyst, you get this sometimes that you'd have like a black spot of data because you haven't considered
the overall concept of the car. Though would lend. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
it's a tough, durable car.
That's the end of the Mark III. The Mark II. On to the Mark III. So the Mark III's, we've just driven it. We've just reviewed it for the main channel. So it gives us sort of quite a lot of fresh impressions of it in our head.
Such a good car.
I'll start off by saying it has to do a 7-year run. So it doesn't have to do quite as long as run as the Mark II. So its production begins August 2014. We know its send-off happens in November 2023. I wouldn't be surprised if someone says they've got a 2024 because it's built end of 2023. By the time it's transported and registered, it'll be a 24. Again, has to do a wide breadth of engines. So less engines actually than before. So it does a 1.8 for petrol, 2 litre for petrol. It does do a TDI. And then
190 this time, was it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one with the diesel because they do offer it in front wheel drive this time. I would have to double check on what year they pull it, unless you know.
Because it carried on for a while, but it was still the 2 litre TDI 16 valve engine discussed previously, just an evolution of that. The Mark III TT. I get the jump from Mark II from Mark I was pretty significant, but I think Mark III took another big jump again because the competitor space for TT wasn't going away. There was still a 718 Porsche and the Z4 still alive and kicking, doing very well. So Audi had to keep on the focus to improve that car. And that was one of the great things. I think the early TTs, there was sometimes because of the Mark IV Golf underpinnings, a suggestion that TT wasn't a real sports car. We discussed it like that
in the review, yeah.
But actually, effectively, that made Audi try even harder to get the car credible in that space, and things like the S and the RS and all those kind of things, and the use of materials to make the car drive better. Again, one of the only front-wheel drive sports cars I can think of. They made that car with that platform, especially a platform shared with, still the Golf, those kind of things, really work really, really well. And the TT Mark III, having owned all of them, is actually my favourite. So it just brought it all together really, really nicely.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I ever. They all have their own attributes, don't they? But I probably do agree with the Mark III. I like the Mark II, but if I was, if I don't know, a late Mark II and an early Mark III were in front of me for the same price to buy, I would buy the Mark III. So yeah, I think you're right there. There's an evolution throughout. They all have their own charms. Because I think that one of the things I like about the Mark I is that it isn't as polished as by the time you get to a Mark III, and sometimes that on the road forces you as a driver to
bang engine. In the Mark I. Chaos. Loved it.
So the diesel gets dropped in 2019 as part of an update program for the car. It does get offered with a Quattro prior to that. So it launches as a front-wheel drive. It then goes to be offered with Quattro, but that will be market dependent. But if you're in the UK, yes, that's what we get. I don't want to spend too much time on the diesel, only because it does a 4-year window, 3.5-year window. And we know Audi sort of 2000 and sort of 17 we've really been pulling back on some of the marketing and talk around diesel engines in general, but particularly here, probably into 2018. So I think really if you want the diesel, you're looking at 15, 16 and then into 17. 18, my suggestion would have been that they probably started to make it a factory order car because they probably didn't want to send it to dealers. I mean, there would have been like one demonstrator, but we know what the sentiment of the world was at the time. It was higher fuel economy, but the 2 litre and the 1.8 were starting to chase it down because of newer technologies and everything else. So yes, if fuel economy really is the tip top of what you want, and you do get good power from it. It's not that far power-wise, and obviously more torque. But that's kind of all we can say on the diesel one.
Which is more key.
The 1.8, so these are all Gen 3 EA 888 engines. If you're familiar with that engine, this is really where people from a tunability standpoint, from a strength standpoint, from this evolution that's been going on from sort of 2006, 2005, or 2006. Sort of, that's spent 10 years being developed, and now we're getting the third generation, and the third generation is like anything. So, well, I was about to say nothing gets worse, but I suppose, emissions regulations and everything of today, people will argue,
Bings and bongs and ADAS.
Right, you know what I mean? But ultimately, fuel economy increases, power increases, torque critically increases. The 1.8 exists again as an entry, but Audi drop it again with the TDI, at least for the UK. And as far as I'm aware, maybe a couple of European markets get it. But
they switched their low power. They detuned the 2 litre.
They detuned the 2 litre, absolutely.
And I think that was interestingly for emissions, because it was easier to get lower emissions out of a larger capacity engine, bizarrely, than a more highly strung, smaller engine. There was an interesting period of time where I think cars like they did a 1.2 litre TSI, Passat, believe it or not. And they dropped that due to it having to work so hard for a small engine. So actually the real life emissions didn't have much cop. So I think that was part of it. So there was also a consolidation of having less complexity in the factory. So what they do is have one 2 litre T engine and vary the boost levels and to provide the positioning.
I had a 1 litre, or it might have been a 1.2 Golf on holiday in Greece in like 2016, something like that. Yeah, I remember the thing. It had torque, but you had to work it some, and you wouldn't get the fuel economy because you were always
exactly on it. Try and keep it moving, man. Absolutely.
So yeah, you're right. The 2 litre then sort of gets the 40 as Audi renamed their stuff.
Yes.
So 40 is the entry. 45 is the one that would have been more familiar if you were following the 2 litre lineage. I think if there hadn't been a need for a lower emissions program, they would have just had the 245 PS engine. But as you say, it really sort of narrowed down so you start with 4 engines, and by 2019 there's 2 engines. One of them's obviously got quite a lot of variation, but this Mark III, clearly when it's built and developed, has to be built for, again, quite a wide variation. What is it? So should just mention 3 gearboxes, and one of those gearboxes is just for the RS. Okay, so we'll just put that off to the side. What is it you think defines this era of the TT? And as we know it, in our podcast today, this will be our end point of the story.
It's the car that Audi would have liked the TT to be when it launched. Right. So in terms of it's now, don't get me wrong, the Z4, Boxster and Cayman have all moved on, but TT's actually moved on even more. So it's to point to end its life cycle, it was the closest it had ever been in terms of driver's appeal to the 2 cars I mentioned. I'm leaving out the SLC maybe unfairly, but I think the Z4 and the Cayman Boxster piece were the biggest drivability rivals to that car, and I think it got the closest. And I think it ended its life. It was really sad when it stopped production, as you with some of them. Really sad because I think the car was just so strong, has so much extra to give. But yeah, I think that was it. Basically, the attributes were perfectly balanced in the Mark III.
Do you know? Is this a victim of the rules around cybersecurity, or is it a victim of emissions and crash?
Yeah, it's about when it started, so 2015. May well be.
I'm just wondering why they did.
I think in terms of typical Volkswagen Group life cycle, again, it lived for a while, didn't it? So it
did.
Went on for seven years.
7 years.
They're relatively quite long for a life cycle, and also if the market was really there for it. There was no real market for sports cars by that point, really. I mean, it was the sports car market was really getting narrow. So
what is the sports car market today as we sit here?
Exactly.
Thank goodness for Mazda as well.
Yeah, I mean, Z4's on the way out, 7, 8 stopped.
Z4, I think, has actually
it's probably stopped
its production now.
So therefore, there's very, very little.
Supra's gone.
Yeah.
With the Z4, that.
Yeah. It's a big question. What is the sports car market now? It's very limited. You got MX-5 and Mustang.
That's right.
Waving, flying.
And if you're not out there to spend big money, GR86 is still in some countries. We haven't got it in the UK for bizarre reasons. I ask her. Yeah, but I can't in the UK. But
European emission standard.
I wish you'd just give them an exemption. My goodness me. How many are they going
to be asked for a 2.4? That is hard to get compliant.
Just call up someone and be like, listen, look, we're gonna.
The T engine, it'll be fine.
We're planning to sell like 2,500 units a year of this thing. Like, if we put this into the global sphere of, it might.
Do you know how hard that is? That is
You just,
from my job as a horrific engine program.
you know what? All car brands need to go around to their dealer network.
Yeah.
They need to find the sharpest dressed, wisest cracking, talking salesman they possibly can, and they
sign a volume target.
Yeah, and they
deliver it.
And then say to you are now our corporate representative for all governments. So if we tell you that we need to sell a certain number of cars, you need to sell them on the idea of us doing it. Because that salesman will be walking into these EU, and he'll be like, listen, lads, I get your point, but come on, it just needs a little bit of common sense or something like that to say.
It's about marketing spend allocations, a broader discussion about sports cars, because the D&D cost now for developing any new car, as you know, is astronomical, which is why the Z4 and Supra had to coexist as a shared platform. And I think when those things aren't there, it's very hard to do it in isolation. So kudos to Audi for potentially bringing back the TT, albeit with a shared platform with Porsche, which we'll come on to later, I'm sure. But in answer to your question, as a core sports car is a really great thing to have, but they started to exist at a period where we were kind of really into cars, and it's kind of gone again. So the MX-5 is committed to the next generation. It's a fantastic car, but you're right, we're down to easy single digits of sports cars available globally now. But in TT, the point was, are we sad the TT ended? Definitely we are, and I think there's space for it to come back, but it had to end, I think, because of the things you mentioned about cybersecurity. It was an older platform. It was still the MQV platform.
It was still the MQV. It's the
iteration of the MQV
so
platform.
A lot of the cars that it was built with were evolved. And that Golf moved from Mark 7 to Mark 8. Mark 8 is an evolution platform. The TT never gets that. It stays on the old.
So therefore, you didn't get all the electrical architecture for that reason. So because they couldn't make the business case work. So I would have been trying if I was working at time.
It's funny because I think this is that thing of hindsight. And I could see, 2023, you're just after the COVID years, the lockdowns, you've probably not sold any of these, people have been selling cars and whatever else. If you could have just looked forward a couple of years, and I always say there's like a survivorship thing of, in business, if there's 100 competitors, it's the ones that are good will last, but the ones that are able to really see it out through tough times will be there with them. And that's probably because they've got a good product in the first place. But if you can just see out the roughest of rough seas and get to the other side, you'll only be you left. And I mean, the MX-5 proves that. It's a great vehicle, and it's managed to weather a lot of storms.
Growing in sales, even at 10 years old.
Which is, amazing. And I just wonder if the TT had just got over that next.
Ultimately, down to sports cars, the core thing is drivability. And TT, I think, is that, to answer the point we made earlier, it's absolutely a sports car.
Yeah.
Would you rather drive a 718 or would you rather drive a TT?
Well, what I was going to say is if they kept this, they wouldn't have that question anymore.
Of course, the only one left, absolutely right. But then, the only sports car left was kind of a front-wheel drive MQB hatchback platform. Maybe that's unfair. I mean, no, they're down there, but ultimately, so yeah.
And if you've got a fight with the MX-5, then the MX-5 is true rear-wheel drive, front engine, the old sort of
those kind of aspects. You're down to pretty basic tenets, but yeah.
So we have the 2-litre engine. We're going to talk about the RS later. We have the 2-litre engine.
Yeah.
It's got to be the regular car now. So we've spoken about it. It obviously is launched slightly differently, but with then 2019 update, it becomes let's just say early 200s in the horsepower, depending on whether you buy a 15, 16, 17, 18 or 19 onwards. And it's got to really soak up the bulk of sales. They've got to do a lot to that engine to sort of tune it right, because they can't treat it like they do Skoda Octavia, VRS, which has got its own set of competitors and is going to use that engine. This is going to go in a group test on every magazine across the world against a Cayman or a Boxster or a GR86. Do you think they let that hurdle with enough vigor in the 2-litre, or do you think they left it all to the TTS to do?
Interesting. The 2-litre T for me in the UK was basically the base engine. So that's the car we drove. With the 2-litre T, albeit quattro, a very strong engine. Yeah, I mean, it was great car. I mean, and you could argue, did the TTS add enough to that to make it a significant jump? For me, the TTS wasn't a highlight of the TT range.
Well, we should add in that the TTS is it has the dark day, so there's across the world. I don't know why the emissions programs work like this, but essentially OPFs came in quite suddenly. So OPF, GPF, PPF, if you're petrol particulate. I don't think anyone uses petrol particulate now. It sounds too much like paint protection.
So OPF stands for auto particulate filter, which is basically petrol particulate filter, right, opposed to DPF, which is for
diesel particulate. Yeah. So they have to put a filter in the exhaust about 2018. So the regular cars I don't think get affected, but the TTS, the S3, Golf GTI, Golf R, they all lose 10 horsepower essentially. So if you have a TTS 15, 16, 17, you've got 316. I don't know PS or horsepower. I think PS. And then
PS.
18 to 21 or 19 to 21, I should say, you get 306. And then they managed to find it back for 2021, and they go to 320. But I think this is one of the first times. Well, it's definitely the first time in this Audi history we can talk. We can talk about the 2-litre got detuned to replace the 1.8, but they moved it up as well. So they didn't detune it and only offer you that. They just offered a lower.
And they made the gap bigger.
Whereas the TTS actually, it was on this, and then it dropped down a little bit because I suppose it's like whatever it was, the emissions program caught everyone out, and a lot of cars lost horsepower, and then they managed to gain it back. But I just wonder if that shows that the TTS maybe had high expectations of it. Maybe like they launched it with high power and they thought that can deal with the Porsche question, the Z4 question. You know, we're going to look at that car to answer that, rather than the regular 2-litre.
I mean, having owned both a 2-litre T and the TTS, overall attribute-wise, the 2-litre T for me was more than adequate, because the TTS never really conceived as a track car. I mean, it had the adaptive dampers as standard, and it had more power.
We were just talking about this on the review, so you can check that out after this podcast.
But yeah, 2-litre T for most of us, probably all the TT you'll need, but the one coming after that is very special.
This is why I find it interesting, because Audi, when they come into this era, they know there's a TTRS market.
Yeah.
Okay, that's been established in the Mark II. So they know that customer exists.
Yeah.
They know no question that the 1.8 and the 2-litre and the 2-litre TDI, that customer definitely existed in 2015. As we've said, they dribble off over the years. But it puts the TTS in an odd middle space of it.
Yeah.
It is the car that's going to be put on the magazine test against, maybe a Boxster S, or probably the regular Boxster, because 300 horsepower. So
fair. Yeah.
So I should say 718.
Yeah.
But because they've got the convertible coupe, so the Cayman as well.
So 2-litre T.
The Z4 is offered with a 2-litre turbo engine, then they have a 3-litre as well. So that they are directing their competition quite well, but it kind of left the TTS in a position. I don't know that I see a lot of TTSs on this era. I see quite a lot on the Mark II. But here, there seems to be a bit of a jump. You'll see RS at a car show.
Yeah.
And the proper car enthusiasts that chase that. But maybe down to what you said there, people drove the regular 2-litre and said, this is enough. I don't need to pay extra for this.
Yes, did look awesome.
Oh, well, yeah, there's no question.
The design was very, very good, and the satin grey finishes, and it was more of a step for design change, I think, on the STT Mark III than it was on the Mark II. But yeah, I was thinking of timing in the market, but it was similar gap for the Mark II. So the TTS came 2 years after the standard 2-litre T. The same thing happened in the Mark III. So, but yeah, I mean, it just makes a personal thing. It never, even with all that performance, it never really did much for me. I mean, I looked and the quality and everything like that, but I just found the 2-litre T that I've spent more time in. I feel like just attribute-wise,
I think you're typical of the market. That's kind of what the numbers are showing. Yeah, the TTS, it didn't get lost in a no man. People still bought it, but it didn't.
It's still a great car.
Yeah, it just maybe didn't get the excitement that it did in the Mark II. Maybe because the Mark II, it was new and it was fresh.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Once you tell people an RS exists, does anyone know that currently Audi are selling an S6? Does anyone know that? Everyone's waiting for the new RS. Yes, they're selling it, but it's an EV. So this is the thing, is that sometimes because of the RS, people actually forget in the Audi range. And we talked about the last week, a couple of weeks ago, we did the Audi RS. We talked loads about the RS5, the new one. The S5's been out for a year.
Yeah.
And it's got 350 horsepower, it's a V6.
Very good. It was.
And it's nearly half the price.
So you need to do podcasts and S models there. Yeah. We need to highlight those.
But it's interesting, once you have that upper halo of RS, the car enthusiasts that are, you and I, we will talk about the 2 litre T and we go, God, that's great value. That's a lot for a car for your money. And then the only other conversation is, but the RS, you get the 5-cylinder.
I think the gap from TTS to RS on the Mark III, I think, is a year shorter than when it happened on the Mark I. I think yes, the RS. I think it's TTS only had clear air on the Mark III for about a year to year and a half before the RS came out. So they bought the RS slightly forward. Also, the Mark III TTRS was way bigger jump in terms of capability and attributes than the Mark II RS TT was. So in terms of the acceptance and how it was manifested. So yeah, that was different.
The TTRS.
Oh, what a thing.
And it gets some really special versions. They know they're going to run it out. So, you have heritage editions. You get like all these performances, depending if you're in the US or Europe, where you'll get different special editions.
That later 5-cylinder engine with the aluminium block.
That's
the weight.
Which was a big, we've talked about it. We're not going to cover it here because we talked about it in the RS podcast, but that was a step change for that engine.
Well, and it's Bedosian and 400 horsepower for that.
Yeah, and that was standard.
Yeah,
the tuners were out there, sort of finding 500 horsepower very, very easily.
Utterly amazing, and it small detail. It worked really well cosmetically, but they had this option wheel on it, which looked absolutely incredible. So Audi are very good at innovating wheel designs, and it has a multi-spoke wheel with kind of ticks at the end, at the edge. They look spectacular. I nearly, there you go. Yeah. The one, exactly the one.
Yeah.
I had one on order and it arrived at the port and it was on the back of a trailer getting backed off, and they managed to somehow weirdly cause significant damage to the gearbox trying to get it off the wagon.
No way.
I never took delivery of that car. And it's one that got away, so I'm going to have to get one. But yeah, I
didn't know that story.
Yeah, sorry, I should have told you. Yeah, it was myself.
Did that have the option wheels?
It did have the option. It was a coupe. But the TTRS Mark III was what a way. I mean, that was TT coming of age. And if you think about the gap between the core competitors for drivability and performance appeal, that was the narrowest it had ever been. So I'm going to ask a question. So TT RS, say it's £60,000 MSRP. You've got to choose between that or a Cayman S of the same age.
Or a Cayman S.
A Cayman S. I was going to say base Cayman. I'm going to say Cayman S. So
the Cayman S on this time was a 2.5
litre T,
4-cylinder,
flat 4
turbo, probably similar power, 370, I think.
Yeah, about that. A bit less.
A bit less? 360s?
No, that's a bit less than TTR.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know what?
For Mark II, it wasn't a hard decision, was it?
No.
Equivalent Boxster. Now you've got to rethink about it.
Well, yeah, because we just talked about in the review. Yeah. We said the thing with, if you go 718 or if you go that Boxster Cayman mix, is that's a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car. Being able to buy anything that's mid-engine rear-wheel drive is gone for most of the public today.
On that basis, yeah.
But so is buying a 5-cylinder.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, the RS3 still exists currently. They've extended its life a little bit.
Yeah.
But
close, isn't it? I mean, it was so thorough.
Closer than it should be. Because one of them is
close as it's ever been.
Yeah. And you could make the argument that both are the top coming down to the other. Yeah, you could say, but that's an RS Audi, and this is not one of the special. It's not a GT4. It's not a Spider. It's not. This is not the special RS.
Exactly.
But the flip side, you go, yeah, but this is the pinnacle for most people of a sports car, and this is an Audi TT. Yeah. Yes, it's the hottest one, but and you go, yeah, but and I suppose depending on where your fanfare sits, I think the only reason I would say a 718 would be that I don't know another scenario where I'm going to get a mid-engine car.
Sure.
But, and it's a big but, the first pull, I would want the 5-cylinder.
Yeah.
So I probably would end up in a TTRS.
Wow.
No, I wouldn't. That same mass doesn't work against a GT4.
Yeah.
It doesn't work against a Spider.
Yeah.
It doesn't work against GT4 RS.
Agreed.
Or a Spider RS.
Or a GTS, probably.
Yeah, well, a GTS 4 litre.
Yeah.
Because they did a 2.5 and the 4.
That's true.
So if it was a GTS 4 or this RS, I'm buying a GTS 4.
Yeah.
But here, a 4.
Because they're a similar price point. And it's like, the point making with that point is that they've never been closer.
Yes, no, and you're absolutely right. I never thought of it.
And the pinnacle sports car, 718. Bear in mind, TT was accused, was it ever a real sports car? Isn't it a credit to Audi? The fact they took it from people questioning it being a real sports car on the Alpha Golf platform to now us knowing a fair bit about the subject, really struggling to choose. And you've just given the TTRS to Nord, and I would agree with you.
Yeah,
there. Because the thoroughness of that car. They worked in a four-wheel drive system. They did the brakes, did the suspension. The aero was fantastic. The performance was amazing. The sound was incredible. The S-tronic gearbox had never worked. S-tronic had never worked better. The interior was amazing. The quality was incredible. Made in Hungary, like all the TTs ever have been. And it was just such a positive way to finish, which is why it was sad when it stopped and it was a rabidly fast car. We're talking 0 to 60 in like 3.5 seconds, 0 to 100 in 3.7.
Yeah.
With really violent launch control and performance packs. You could have a TT that's closing down on nearly 180 miles an hour. It was a really, tricky question to answer. And I'm the biggest 718 fanboy, but that would be a really twist. Yeah. So,
yeah. I think it comes down to everything you've said there. Of its evolution, reaching its pinnacle. And if you were chasing down the car that kind of, for most people, sits at the top, you've got to have, like if you said TTS, it's no contest. You end up in
a base Cayman.
Yeah. It's something, and I suppose you and I have had this conversation off the podcast as well about, the minute Audi do have a very special engine with that 5-cylinder. And if you're someone who's a car enthusiast, you will give up a lot to have something unique today, because almost everything is a 4-cylinder turbo. That's the way that, the market's
like good ones.
Yeah, I mean, there is. That's the simple fact of, if you can just do it well with a 4-cylinder turbo, and you get fuel economy and emissions score and all that sort of stuff. So to be in anything that isn't a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, even just adding a cylinder,
I mean, just the warble. It's the offset. It's not a balanced level of cylinders, right?
Yeah,
it's amazing. And we've just got it's got a distinct firing order to make it sound better as well.
Yes, and you know that crawling at 10 miles an hour in a traffic queue on your way to to Disneyland, so whatever. Yeah, just Tuesday morning, it's raining. You're on your way to work to go to a meeting that you're not that excited about. Something about a 5-cylinder, because it crawls along, is just gonna make the whole day
everything's going to and it's such a nice place to be in the interior, because the interior was head and shoulders above the 718 for me as well.
They did a lot of sort of final editions, anniversaries, run outs around 2022 into 2023. The UK and the USA and Australia and Germany all got either slices of the pie, or they got their own, and it was almost like the Audi did a lap of the world of a goodbye, which I think is fantastic. I think it's sad that they did it, but as in, it's sad that they were giving the car up and accepting that it couldn't last any longer. But it's nice that they did it in that way, because there could have been an argument, especially the times we were in in 2022, that because of the way the world was at that point, they could have said, look, we can't really do a world, special editions and all that sort of stuff. We're just going to do, one goodbye, call it a final, that's it. And instead, it did get quite a lot of things offered to it in, say, 2022 into 2023. And it's seeing that Audi themselves recognised the position it had for them in global markets, not just the UK, not just Europe, not just the USA, but everywhere it was offered, And so they gave it, I think, a great swan song in that way. And I'm sure there's lots of collectors that are holding on to them, and you'll never see them unless you're at a car show. And that, it's fine. There's lots of 2018s knocking about that you can buy. Is there anything else to say on this generation, this Mark III?
I mean, it's definitely on my list. I see TTRS for those wheels as well. No, just it's really nice. There's obviously I've going back a long way with that. It's really nice that the TT ended so strongly. It did not end on a whimper. And I think that helped the fact that the TT conversation is happening again now. Because it was so well regarded.
So if you are out there and a bit like Owen, this whole thing's got you excited about the idea. They start actually fairly reasonably. £25,000 gets
That's from R3.
A 2018 with 75,000 miles on it. There's a 2000. There's a late 16, so 17 car, 66 plate for the same money. But really, 30 grand. That's where the market really begins. Oh, there are a few, I say, before that, but £30,000 buys you a 40, 50,000 mile, 5-6 year old one. 6-7 year old one.
Yeah, it's not bad depreciation as well.
No,
says the car was really well sought after. Yeah, wow.
So
PT, Mark III, that's how to do it. Close it. Not that's Audi being tenacious and not accepting second place, considering the platform constraints had to work within. So that's some really big credit to the Quattro and GmbH team for developing that RS derivative as well with the main program team.
So where does that leave us, Owen? So in 2024, it was officially gone.
Yeah,
the TT. Okay, we know November 2023 that was the last one out the factory door. As I say, you'll find one registered in 24, but they were gone as far as Audi was concerned. And Audi then there was, I don't remember there being many rumours in that immediate aftermath. There were talks of that there would be one, but they did make it quite clear there wouldn't be an immediate successor.
I think you might be being kind. I think they were pretty. I think from I remember they closed it down pretty quickly. Like there's no plan for a replacement, but maybe as a BEV potentially. I think was the kind of thing.
Okay, so I think I've probably leaned more on rumor. Yeah, than fact.
Yeah, I think they would. It kind of ended fairly quietly.
Okay,
so there was no.
So they had that
shock and awe factor at the end of it. There was no C5 RS6 Plus moment.
Right,
you see what I mean?
Yeah, it was more of I suppose emissions program stopped all that. As I say, there are those specials that were different colours, or
they did some final additions with the colour and trim piece.
Yeah, and that was spread out across the world. But like you say, once the hammer dropped,
that was it.
The last one left the factory. They put it in buy. And so if in 2024 you were actually, I think funny enough, had this conversation with a friend in either 2023 or 2024 because they had owned several and they said, I might get a TT again. And I went, well, you better be very quick. And they were like, what? Because it had become a car for many people, BMW 3 Series.
Yeah.
Or the M3 is better.
Of the range.
That just it exists.
As the brand, yeah.
Yeah, the MX-5 just exists. Yeah. It's not going anywhere. The Volkswagen Golf exists.
Exactly.
You just go into the dealer and ask for whatever they are selling, And I think it took a few people as a bit of a surprise to say, that's gone.
Yeah.
That's you walk in and say you want one, they're not making you one.
Therapy ever since. Bugger. Yeah, I mean it just finished so strongly. There's no whimper.
24 really, that's we're not really hearing too much about it. 25, we start to hear this conversation around the idea of an electric TT. Well, I think the messaging got maybe a little bit confused because what we eventually see from some of the conversations is the new Volare, which isn't a TT.
No.
It's a £500,000.
R8, effectively.
Yeah.
I'd say £500,000 a key point, right? I mean, it's not really an R8, but a success in R8 was based on value.
It's certainly not a TT success.
No, absolutely.
That person who went, I got a really good finance deal on a TT.
New Volare is not going to do that for you. There was there was talk about TT came back on the base of the 718 electric car platform.
Sorry, I don't want to cut across you. I just want to get some clarification, see if you know. The 718 program replacement, do you think that ever existed on its own without a TT conversation?
I think absolutely.
Right. So that is sort of started up probably around 23, 22, maybe even earlier than that.
The development has started sooner because there's always an intention to replace 718 because the sales were still really strong, even though that car was ancient by the time it stopped production and the platform.
What was it? So, because it was actually still the previous gen.
Yeah, 718 was a heavy facelift to the previous.
So then
the same dashboard.
Was that car 13?
Or 12. 2012 launch and 13 volume came.
So over a decade.
And then even that was a heavy evolution of the previous one. So honestly, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Amazing not, but it was very old by the time it stopped. So therefore, and the electric version had already started development.
Okay, so Porsche are offering that
Yes.
journey, but Audi are not there.
And I think it's quite a recent decision, probably within the last 18 months, for Audi to get back on board with the TT because they needed the brand vigor, marketing, sports car, aspirational side of the Audi brand. It got quite rational. Still had RS versions of the cooking cars. There was no real kind of sports car kind of halo kind of thing. And especially Audi started to suffer a bit with its lacking in mojo and sales in China really, really not going in the direction they wanted them to. They needed something to reinvigorate the brand from a product perspective, and the TT is a good way of doing that. But the challenge is but that was the last we kind of heard of it. And since then, we've now had tacit confirmation, not really. Porsche are now looking at an internal combustion or hybrid version of the 718.
As far as I understand it, there is no longer a question that the either Cayman or Boxster RS version will be combustion powered of some description.
Yes.
Whether that will trickle into then a GTS, possibly the S and the regular one is still an unknown. But as far as I'm aware, I think if you went to Porsche's PR team today and stood in their office and said, I know you're making a combustion one, they probably would admit, they'd say, maybe in an RS. But that would be as far as they want to have that conversation.
Probably, and they probably haven't a formal confirmation of anything else since. But what that does mean is that is a heck of a thing. I mean, when this is an Audi, not a Porsche podcast, actually make a BEV platform car into a nice one.
Yeah,
that's not the work of the moment. But again, I think Porsche feel they need that for their mojo as well, potentially. So, but the point being there is that the last thing we heard about the intention for Audi to re-enter the TT was as a BEV. Now that Porsche are starting to talk about doing ICE, is that going to potentially raise the possibility of Audi TT going back and coming back as an ICE car as well as a flagship at a lower price point than New Volare? So, which was the point we started the podcast with, wasn't it? We said there's not going to be an internal combustion at TT again. There might be, but we're just not sure what form that might take.
So we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't on camera. That I had seen there had been a test mule of what we know is going to be some sort of Porsche EV, but it was on Ingolstadt plates, and that's usually the indicator of that's an Audi. Yeah. So whether they're rebodying and trying to do it,
or there could just be harmlessly internally benchmarking the 718 BEV.
Quite possibly, we'll give them that.
Yeah.
I think, do you know, the really interesting thing for me is with all the conversation around the world, especially in the US, if you're looking at specifically a US market and you want your mojo there. This couple of weeks ago, Volkswagen announced and people are going to be like, what? They've had that for ages. So the Volkswagen Golf Hybrid has come out. Now, the hybrid is not a plug-in hybrid. It's a self-charging hybrid. And that's come like such a weird car to release. Basically, it's not during a facelift. It's not a launch. It's, when is it, 2022? So it's 4 years into production. And they've gone, oh yeah, we're doing and they already have a mild hybrid and a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah.
But my point to that is, the platform that sits below the Volkswagen Golf is the evolution of this TT platform. If you were sat in Audi HQ right now and you go, well, we built a really, really good car off of the same platform as our A3, which we're extending the lifespan of, and our TT, what's now, people I think would have said it's a given that the next era of Golf, Mark 9 Golf, would be an EV. That's no longer a given, and I would say probably an unlikely.
Yeah, fair enough.
So whether there now is more conversation evolving for Audi to say, we're in a program for some sort of EV new version of the TT.
Yeah.
But we possibly do have a third option here.
Yeah.
First option was we're never going to bring it back.
Yeah.
Second option is let's partner up with our pals at Porsche because we've done some really good work together previously and some amazing cars. The third option is, well, if the Volkswagen Group in general is going to keep this platform that's currently under the Golf and the A3 and S3 and RS3 into 2035, because that's sort of European cutoff, which might change.
Yeah,
which probably will change because the US aren't talking about doing it. California have talked about it, and then
India even set targets.
No, I'm about to say. So there could be another conversation that evolves to say, could the TT just go
onto that platform?
I mean,
there's a big the big point to that is both the reinvigorating the allocation of cost. So the reinvigorating of the Audi brand, is it marketing brand led, or does it need to have a product support? The product support aspect to do that, we mentioned, is a €1 billion program.
That's incredible.
It's a €1 billion program. So do Audi feel like they have the ability to make that investment to do that? But even a top hat program like that is a $1 billion.
So I suppose the question is really, how much are they outlaying? Well, I mean, these are things that no one will ever know, but internally they know how much they're having to outlay to go into the program of Porsche on the EV side.
Yeah, and they'll know how much discount cars to get them sold.
And there'll probably be a conversation between the two brands to say, look, what we don't want is cannibalizing each other's sales. So you've got to do this and we're going to do this, or you limit your sales, or whatever the story may be. So an addition to that conversation could be the EV TT is going to be an above halo car, 500 horsepower EV, blah, blah, blah. So,
all right, yeah.
We're essentially going to make a blended TTR8, but an EV. And then we can have the budget TT, the everyman TT that we've had previously by going back.
And that's one of the hardest business cases to make, because it's effectively you're doing it as a marketing spend, because you're not going to really, I mean, you're going to, by doing that car, you're going to invigorate the Audi brand if you get it right. Yeah. You're going to invigorate the Audi brand, lift it all to sell more of all the different cars. And is that actually better investment in expenditure than a different marketing campaign, different network expansion plan?
Do we think there's a market, like honestly today, do we think there's a market for this TT we've been talking about, the Mark III
based on
evolution?
Historic data, no, because people have left that segment again and again, and the market's gone down. But has the market gone down because there's less and less choice? So because less and less cars to choose from. I will say that you look at the last year of 718 production, super strong.
Yeah,
they still sell a lot of units, and I do believe strongly in the enthusiast community out there is not dying out. It's just changing and evolving. So is there still a market for sports cars? Absolutely. They need to be, but manufacturers need to consolidate and join forces like BMW and Toyota did to make compelling cars.
I heard they're actually planning another partnership with some. I cannot remember
what being sports cars, but
there is definitely something.
There's something rumbling away. So I feel like as brand building positions, especially people like Toyota have made such big strides in terms of brand with their performance vehicles.
Yeah,
I don't think manufacturers are to leave that yet, because the electric era has made them really question some of those decisions. That's a big macro discussion, and strategically fascinating. But in answer to your question, I think if you bring back appealing cars that are more usable and relevant for the modern age, there's no reason why they wouldn't sell strongly.
Because I suppose the second part to that question of is there a market goes that, is it possible that they could sell the car at a price that would fulfill a market? So if we said they're bringing the TT back as a combustion car, it's going to be off the back of the Mark 9 Golf, and it's going to be £72,000. I don't know what the market is for that, but it's not the previous TT market. But same sentence, and it's going to have this hybrid. It's going to have a hybrid 1.5, but it's going to make 220 horsepower, and it's going to be £37,000. Is that a market?
It's a different conversation, potentially.
Someone at Audi's listening and they're going,
"You're going to find out, maybe." So, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think there's still, especially in the era currently of a homogenization of mainstream brands and vehicles in the C segment, the D segment, that are becoming more and more similar. I think people still, it's a big question about car ownership and how do we use their cars, and do they still see them as an accessory and a personal brand piece? I think they do. And I don't think people's desire for design is going anywhere, to be honest. So I feel like there could be an opportunity, but there's lots of reasons why the sports car market has dwindled so much. But the enthusiast community wants it back. The enthusiast community needs to be big enough to be able to underpin the R&D investment, to underpin that €1 billion decision to do that.
I suppose the addition to that would be, we're talking about the enthusiast market. 2 years ago, everything was going to go EV.
Yeah.
That was a given. There was no real conversation. That was a given. That was the way the market was going to go. Today, we know that's not
having a wobble.
It's not in the position it was in.
Yeah.
But one of the aspects of the automotive market that is changing is there is very little uniqueness to brands currently. Not currently. In the next stage of development, they are all looking at each other. Partly this is you've had a lot of new manufacturers into Europe that weren't previously selling there, who are selling SUVs at the same size, price point, or even a cheaper price point as the legacy makers. Then you've got the same going on with electric hatchbacks, electric saloons. And so you look at all that and you say, if you're a company like BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Jaguar Land Rover Group, any of the others, the Infiniti and Lexus and the top end of the Japanese market, what are you doing next to, as a brand, differentiate yourself when... I'm not saying the Chinese will copy them. I'm saying the Chinese are already in that market. So just like if Honda release a Civic Type R, Toyota release a GR Corolla, that's just the. So how do you go somewhere where other people can't go? Mazda have done it. No one else can go down that route. Everyone who's ever tried to take on the MX-5 are gone. Because the MX-5 is not a Cayman Boxster competitor. It's differentiated itself. It doesn't offer the power. It's offering a different... Do manufacturers say, well, if the public start thinking like that there's no differentiator, and they want to be differentiated, isn't it exactly cars like the TT that would do that?
I think it's why they're having a conversation now, because they've seen the change in the electrification era. Cars can homogenize a powertrain. Maybe they're thinking about how they bring back some inject some more personality and character into their brands. And also, it's something that they have history and legacy in doing. And it's as a counteraction to the Chinese dominance of mainstream cars coming in now.
Right.
They haven't got that history and pedigree and legacy of doing sports cars. Right. Therefore, the brands who have got that, maybe they use that to contemporize their brands, because they know some of their new brand entrants haven't got that ability to do that yet.
You probably would be having a very, very strong look at the MG Cyberster sales right now. If you were...
To be honest, then they're all right. But it's not too bad, the two units. So, it's...
But are they doing all right for MG, or are they doing all right for a Volkswagen?
This Volkswagen car, exactly. It's a different proposition. That car's still getting evolved. But, interesting subject to that, the opportunity for sports.
I think
there's never been a bigger opportunity for TT to make a re-entrance. But I just found it very interesting. At the start of the podcast, we talked about that TT internal combustion is done. I'm like, let's wait to the end to discuss it, because there could be an opportunity.
Yeah, I've been definitely watched this space. Owen and I'll do another podcast in, what are we in? Probably 2028 maybe, and we'll probably have
visit this.
Yeah,
so invited back,
and possibly we'll have an answer on that podcast to say, well, wouldn't you know it? But until then, the only I think we end it. But the only thing we understand is that the TT is not forever gone. As we sit here, we don't know what its next step will be, but everything is pointing towards there will be the TT nameplate will exist on
and it's earned its stripes and earned its desire to come back because of what a car.